Good morning. Before we get started, I would ask everyone to please turn off your cell phones or turn on the silent feature. This hearing is being live streamed on YouTube. I would ask all those that come forward to speak to an application today to use the microphones provided to ensure that all discussions can be heard clearly. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat people, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. This meeting is called to order in accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act. The Committee of Adjustments considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that applies to the property, permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to sever property to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of our decision must complete a decision request card. These cards are available at the end of the table on my right. Please ensure that you include your email address on this form. Once completed, please give the card to a member of the staff seated to my right. If you do not agree with our decision, most decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. More information on the TLAB can be found on either the TLAB or our Committee of Adjustments website, both of which are accessed through the City of Toronto website. The procedure today: to ensure a fair and timely hearing, I'm going to vet the agenda to determine which applications can be dealt with immediately and which applications have individuals other than the applicant or agent that wish to address the committee. In other words, for the most part, those who are opposed the application. I will call each item in order listed on the agenda and will ask for individuals to identify themselves. If there are people in interest, or in opposition, the matter will be held until all non-contested applications have been dealt with. If your item is held, we strongly advise that the applicant meet with the interested parties outside the hearing room to discuss the issues and try and resolve them, or at least resolve some of the issues. If no person is present in interest, the item will be called in order of the agenda for non-contested applications. If the application is uncontested, the applicant will proceed with their presentation if required. We may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. We will be holding you to that 5 minutes because we have 45 applications today. I will comment when you are reaching the 5 minutes. When addressing the committee, please come forward to the podium in front here. Please state your name and address and provide your decision request card to committee staff. Please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. If you have a written submission that you read from, please hand it to the Deputy Secretary Treasurer when you're done. The applicant or agent will proceed first and will make a presentation to the committee. Please note that we're likely not to entertain any extensive revisions to proposals at the hearing today. We may decide to defer the application to ensure that any revisions are accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. After we hear from the applicant, we will hear from individuals in either support or opposed to the application. If there are several speakers sharing the same view, we're going to ask you to select a spokesperson to present that group's opinion. We do not want the same points to be covered over again. Those in opposition or in support will also be confined to 5 minutes unless we have a lot of people in opposition, in which case we may say you have 3 minutes because there's too many speakers. We may ask questions of each speaker. When all speakers are finished and the applicant has had an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers, that will be the end of the discussion. The application will then be taken into committee for a decision. Can I have a motion to confirm the minutes of the last meeting?
No.
Yes. Did you make a motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded. All in favor? Last meeting's minutes are confirmed. Are there any declarations of interest on the panel or staff for the morning list? No. Any files to be closed, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer?
Through you, Mr. Chair, not in this time slot. I just want to also remind the members, make sure that your microphones are on when you speak so that everyone in the room can hear you and you're recorded for YouTube. Thanks.
Are there any deferral requests?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are a number of deferral requests, and I would advise or suggest that maybe we vet the agenda and still give those people opportunity to go out in the hallway if people are here. And then if they're still interested in having a deferral or requesting a deferral, then the committee can consider the request at the time.
Okay. Are there any withdrawals?
Not in this time slot.
Okay. Okay. So just to remind you that those decision request cards are very important. If you're making a submission and you wish to receive our decision, please hand in your decision request card. I'm going to vet the agenda now. I'm going to call the applicants first and then anybody in opposition. Number 1, 859 O'Connor Drive. Applicant? Yes. Any opposition to this application? Okay, that will proceed. Number 2, 216 Wright Avenue. Applicant? Yes. Any opposition to number 2 Wright Avenue? Okay. Anybody on either of those two applications who's either in support or in opposition? Okay. Number 3, 73 Earl Grey Road. Applicant? Yes. Anybody in support or in opposition? Okay, that will proceed. Number 471 Earl Grey Road. Applicant? Yes. Anybody in opposition or in interest to this one? No? Thank you. Number 512 NEEPAWA Avenue. Yes. Applicant? Any persons interested in that application or opposed to it? No. Okay. Number 6, 403 Kingston Road. Applicant? Yes. Okay. Any other people interested or in opposition? Okay. Pardon? Okay, so you're opposed to the deferral, you're opposed to the application. We're going to hold this down, and we'll call you after we deal with all the uncontested matters. Number 7, 50 Pristine Avenue. Yes, any other persons interested or in opposition to that application? You're in opposition. We will hold that one down. Would you go out in the hall and discuss the issues and see if you can resolve anything? Number 8, 233 Kingston Road. Yes. Any people in opposition or in interest in that matter? You two are applicants, is that correct? Okay. Anybody else interested or in opposition to that application? Okay, we will proceed with that one. Number 9, 180 Broadview Avenue. Applicant? Oh, okay. Anybody? Opposition? Okay, we're going to hold that one down. Would you go up in the hall and see if you can try and resolve the matter? Number 10, 9 COBOURG Avenue. Applicant? Yes. Any opposition or interest in that matter?
I've also asked for
Okay, we will hold it down. You can,
Sorry, we've also asked for an extension to opposition letters as well.
but we will deal with it when we get to it, okay? In the meantime, we're going to hold this down. And you can go outside and talk to each other and see if you can resolve anything.
It won't be able to be resolved.
Well, thank you very much. We'll deal with it then. You don't have to go outside and try and resolve it, but sometimes miracles happen and things get resolved. Okay. Number 11, 154 High Park Avenue, applicant. Yes, any other people in interest or in opposition to 154 High Park Avenue? Okay. Would you go outside and try and resolve the matter? Number 12, 113 MEIGHEN Avenue. Applicant, any opposition or other people in interest in MEIGHEN Avenue? Okay, we will proceed with that one. Number 13, 222 Rhodes Avenue. Applicant, anybody else in opposition or in interest in Rhodes Avenue? Okay, we're going to proceed. 14, 319 Warren Road. Applicant, anybody in, so you're in opposition? Okay, would you go outside and see if you can, and discuss the matter and see if you can, it might help. 15, 181 Hudson Drive, applicant? All right, any opposition or anybody in interest on Hudson Drive? No, okay. Number 16, 1468 Dundas Street West, applicant? Yes, anybody here in opposition or an interest in Dundas Street West? Okay. Number 17, 5 Humber Hill Avenue. Yes, anybody here in opposition or an interest in this Humber Hill? Okay, we're going to proceed. Number 18, 271 Rosedale Heights Drive. Applicant, anybody in interest or in opposition? Okay. Yes, well, you can go outside and discuss the matter. We will deal with it when we get to it. Number 19, 205 Wychwood Avenue. Applicant? Yes, any? Pardon? Okay, is there any opposition or anybody in interest in this matter? Okay, we're going to hold it down. You can go outside and see if you can resolve it, either the deferral or the merits. We will deal with it when we get to it. Number 20, 1636 Bathurst Street. Applicant, any interest or opposition on Bathurst Street? Okay, we'll go ahead with that. Number 21, 74 Rose Park Drive. Applicant, any opposition, interest? Okay, we're going to hold that one. You can go outside and you can resolve your interest. We will start with number 1, 859 O'Connor Drive. Purpose of this application is to convert the existing one-story commercial building into a 3-story mixed-use building with retail on the ground floor and 1 residential dwelling unit above by constructing the 2nd and 3rd-story additions over the existing building and a rear 3-story addition with an integral garage. Before us on this application, we have materials submitted by the applicant, email correspondence from Transportation Services. Good morning.
Good morning.
Your name, sir?
Stephen King. I'm the architect and agent for the owner.
Okay. Can you tell us something about this matter?
Yes, it's a small infill project. We've been working with planning for about a year now. We went with a couple of proposals and have revised it, and now have got the support of planning. It's a small infill project. The lot is fairly narrow, 16 feet, I think, and that's resulted in the variances of parking width. Resulted in that, but we're only adding 1 residential unit, which is a benefit to the area, and maintaining the existing commercial space on the ground floor and providing a parking garage at the back.
I understand the building next door is 3 stories as well?
Yes, yes, so we're matching the height of that and the depth of the adjacent building on the other side.
Okay, does anyone have any questions of the applicant?
No questions?
No questions? Are we ready for a motion?
I'm ready to motion to support. Motion to support?
Support? Approval? Seconder? Okay. You have a seconder? All in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to approve. Move on to number 2, 216 Wright Avenue. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2.5-story detached dwelling by converting the area below the existing rear ground floor terrace into habitable space. Before us in this application, we have materials submitted by the applicant, email correspondence from planning, and a staff report from planning. Okay, and so you've seen the staff report?
I have.
What's your name, sir? I'm sorry.
I'm Trevor Gain. I'm the agent here on behalf of the owners.
All right. So you've seen the staff report, and it just suggests that
We've seen
the
it.
building depth only relates to the basement and the ground floor plan.
It's a technicality on the graphic I have here. Here's our building permit for that area where it's indicating unexcavated at the back. That's a concrete terrace, stone-clad, full footings. And just based on the lot size, that whole area was excavated to put the footings down. The soil was trucked off, so instead of shipping soil back to the site, the definition of a rear terrace that we can't have the excavated area underneath. I don't know why. So what we're asking to do is just maintain the excavated area, and we're just going to use it as a subterranean space. There's absolutely no change to the building envelope from what we got approved 2 years ago at the Committee of Adjustment and approved during the building permit process. It's really just a technical definition issue. And we spoke to all the neighbors so they don't think that we're building an extra 4 meters off the back of the house. It's just a definition.
I just wanted to ask you, were you approved for the depth before, and now you have to approve to have habitable space there?
That's correct. So we had no depth variance before. I'll show you the site plan. Our approved depth was for the back wall of the house, and you can see on the site plan where the terrace sticks off. So now, because there's habitable space underneath this terrace, the zoning examiners are included in the building length and depth.
Okay, I understand. Okay. Do we have any further questions of this applicant?
I have a question. What's the headspace in the newly constructed area under the new deck, 6 feet?
No, it's about 7 and change. It's the height of our basement. So that deck is about 2.5, 3 inches below our finished floor inside. So we have a full habitable space in there.
Any further questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll pass a motion of support along with the community planning condition,
Yeah, subject to the
subject to the plans.
planning condition.
Right.
All right, we have a seconder.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Approval. Number 3, 73 Earl Grey Road. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2.5-story semi-detached house by constructing a secondary suite in the basement, a rear third-story addition with a rear Juliet balcony, a front second-floor balcony, terrace at the southeast. That's struck out. Okay. So, and a rear ground floor deck with a rear basement walkout. And before us on this application, we have materials submitted by the applicant. We have support from 71 and 75 Earl Grey Road. Your name, sir?
Mario Silva, good morning.
Good morning. Okay, can you tell us a little about this?
Yeah, this is a third floor addition, partial third floor addition, and we have 4 variances on it. So the 2 variances are related to setbacks, and this is an existing third floor addition, so it's not gonna, it's an existing condition. The other one is the maximum FSI, which we are asking for 1.11.
What is it now?
Right now, it's probably about 0.69. We've done a study in the area, and there's a variance of, or there's a variety of FSI between 1.1 to 1.52, so we are at 1.11. I can put this on the display if need be.
All right, so does anybody have any questions of Mr. Silva? Do we have a motion?
Have a motion to approve?
Yes. A seconder? Okay, all in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not now. When he starts speaking. Start the clock running. All right. Whoops. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. Number 4, 71 Earl Grey Road. We have before us in this application, the purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2-story semi-detached house by constructing a rear 2-story addition. We have before us material submitted by the applicant. We have support, 8 form letters in support, and 2 further letters of support, and all from Earl Grey Road. Your name, sir?
My name's Ernest Hodgson. I'm acting for the owners.
Ernest
Yes,
Austin?
Hodgson, Hodgson.
H-O-D?
DGSON.
Okay.
This unusual site, it's long, it's narrow, and none of the property lines are parallel. So when it was built, for whatever reason, was built within a few millimeters of the north property line. The house is square, the site is not square. So this results in variances 2, 3, and 4, which are really minor setback issues on the north side only. The FSI perhaps appears high at 1.17, but we think the overall impact on the neighborhood is negligible. There's a 1-story addition already there. We're extending that about 2.5 meters, and then proposing a 2nd-story addition on top of that. As you can see, the addition would only shade the street, Baird Avenue, and the only people looking at it are the cars in the parking space on the north side of Baird. We've kept the length of the addition to this less than 17 meters as permitted by the bylaw. Showing the north elevation, just shows that the addition is minor. We think it's appropriate and desirable in the context of the neighborhood. And as you said, we have support letters from all of the properties that abut the subject property. Thank you.
All right, does anyone have any questions? Do we have a motion?
I so move.
All right. We have a motion for approval. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor? Yeah. You have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 5, 12 NEEPAWA Avenue. Or is it NEEPAWA? All right, the purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a rear 2-story addition with a rooftop patio and a detached 2-story laneway suite. Before us in this application, we have the material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from the Building Division, staff reports from Planning and Engineering. Your name, sir?
My name is Ali Malikzadeh, and I'm an architect and agent behalf of the owner. So we have a number of discussion and back and forth with the planning staff, and they sent a report yesterday that they have two issues. We are here to just justify those two issues that they have is regarding the height of the laneway house, and then also the actual building length, and then the addition to the back.
Yes, that's variance number one with relation
Number
to
two.
the depth,
Yes, variance number 2.
and variance number two, pardon me, number one is the height, and number two is the depth.
Number 1 is related to the height of the laneway house,
Yes.
and then number 2 is related to the building length of the house.
So city staff is suggesting that those two variances be refused.
Yes. We have a lot of discussion. So one of the reason, the most and the only one reason of this extension and then this addition is because of the condition of the homeowner. And then he's a disabled person, and he has this house for over 30 years. He's the owner of the house, and this is going to be his retirement home. Because of
House? Just a minute. Which one's the retirement home, the laneway house or the
no,
primary
the actual house.
house? Okay.
He's here. He's going to talk as well after me. In order to give him the access to the house and to this small house, the elevator is one of the element that we had to add, and then based on the condition of the existing house and then plan, we didn't have any other location that added to the length of the building. So that elevator is adding minimum 5 feet to the building length, and then also we have larger than usual hallway and an accessible hallway for wheelchairs to access to this elevator. So actually this elevator is caused this extra extension that we needed. And then if we eliminate the elevator, we can comply with the bylaw, but that's all because of that elevator.
Okay. What about the height of the laneway house?
So I'm showing on this plan the location of the elevator. And then as you see, just the hatch line is the existing part of the house, and then the existing wall, and then after that we have elevator, and then some space as a living space for the person. Regarding to the, and then also for the building length, there is a number of existing house in this area that this map is just downloaded from the city website, and then it can be measured, and this measurement is all accurate. And then these houses with the red the font on it, and then the red dimension, they are all over 19 meters length. So this is the evidence of the existing of house in the area.
Can we deal with it? Your time is coming to
I understand.
close. Can we deal with the height of the laneway house?
So the height of the laneway house. The height of the laneway house, as we illustrated on this section, the height is 6 meters from the laneway. But the problem is the laneway is 3 foot 2 inches, which is 0.97 meter, is higher than the average of the house. And as part of the definition of this height, they take the height of the laneway house from the established grade from NEEPAWA. So NEEPAWA actually is 3 feet lower than the laneway house. So we kept the 6 meters on the laneway, but when we calculate the elevation from the established grade from NEEPAWA, we're going to be 6.95. So the difference actually, the distance, the differential between the elevation of the laneway house and the NEEPAWA. That's the reason, and we explained to the planning staff, but I don't think they understand it.
Okay, so it's the lot conditions that...
It's a lot condition is exactly. And then also, there is just one picture I show. This is exactly the laneway house, two door to the east. This is existing in that laneway, and the height of the peak roof is 7.2 meters right now.
Okay,
If I can give the owners.
all right.
Thank you very much. My name is Andrew Gray, and I have been the owner of 12 MEIGHEN Avenue for over 30 years.
Sir, I don't think that we have to hear from, unless anyone wants to hear from Mr. Gray, I don't think we have to. I think your application has been adequately explained by Mr. Malak Zeda, and unless anyone has any questions, I think we probably are ready for a motion.
I think, Mr. Chairman, if I may, the whole issue has to do with my disability and the need to have accessible lifestyle and so on.
Well, yeah, but we understand that, sir. And actually, I've been on the committee for 4 years, and I'm an advocate for, and the problem is there aren't any bylaws permitting it, but I'm an advocate for disabled people and renovations that take into account their disabilities. And on the committee, we haven't always done that, but I am an advocate for that. And so I understand your situation, and I would be in favor of a motion to approve, but I'm just one of 4. So
I understand, and I'll give you a written submission. I won't go any further than that.
perhaps you could just have Mr. Malak Zeda hand it in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, do we have, are we ready for a motion?
I'd like to
So hand it to,
I'd like to move that we accept the conditions for the city planning.
okay, just a minute before we deal with the motion. I've just been handed support letters from 14 NEEPAWA and two letters from, well, one letter from 14 NEEPAWA with 2 copies. Right, okay. Would you just hand that to? So we have a motion of approval. Do we have a second? Seconder.
Second.
All right, we have a seconder. All in favor? Anyone, are you in favor? I didn't see your hand. Okay. All right, it's been approved. Thank you very much. Okay, the engineering conditions, there's 3 conditions for the usual laneway house conditions. You're familiar with those, sir? Yes, okay. Thank you. And we're moving on, 6 and 7 are held. We're moving on to number 8, which is 233 Kingston Road. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2-story semi-detached dwelling containing 1 secondary suite by constructing an additional secondary suite in the basement And on this application, all we have are materials submitted by the applicant. Your name, sir?
I'm Roba on behalf of the owner.
Okay, so on this application, we have one variance. So this deals with the floor area of the secondary suites. So there's going to be 2 secondary suites in this house?
Yes, and they're all existing. We're just trying to legalize the one in the basement. It's been existing for many years before.
All right. Does anyone have any questions with respect to this matter? Do we have a motion?
I have a motion to approve.
All right. Do we have a seconder? Seconder. Okay. All right. All in favor? You have your approval. Seconder was Kathleen.
Thank you.
Now we move to numbers 9 and 10 are held. Up, so is 11. Now we move to 12. (113) Avenue. Purpose of this application is to construct a new 2-story detached house with an integral garage. We have before us on this application material submitted by the applicant, a staff report from forestry, and 7 form letters in support. Your name?
Name is Nafisa Zangiabadi. I'm the agent. So we're asking for 3 variances, basically. One dealing with the driveway width, the other with the height, and the other with the GFA. I'll go through them one by one. For the driveway width, we're asking for 4.29 meter, whereas 3.2 is permitted. But the reason we have this number is that we're proposing a 17-foot wide garage, and the driveway is aligned with the garage door to accommodate 2 cars inside, even though we try to keep the landscaping within what is permitted, so we don't have any landscaping variances, even though we're proposing a wider driveway. Our GFA is just a little bit more than what is permitted. Instead of 0.6, we're proposing 0.66, and we're still keeping within the permitted length and coverage and setback. In terms of the height, our overall height is 9 meters, 8.98, which is very common in the area. And as for variances number 4 and 5, the height is measured to the underside of the gables on top of the window, whereas our sidewalls height is measured at 7.16, which is only 16 centimeters more than what is permitted. So the reason that we're getting these high numbers on the height on variance 4 and 5 is just because of the gables at the rear and front. And we do have 8 letters of supports from our neighbors. We just received 3 more last night from our immediate neighbor and the other 2 on the street. So I believe
You have letters that have not been submitted yet?
No, I just got it by email last night, but I have them in my email.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have any questions of the applicant? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
We have a seconder for the motion?
Second.
All right. All in favor? So your motion here will be subject to forestry condition number 1, is that correct? If they're asking for it.
I don't see forestry here.
Yes, forestry condition number 1. Yeah, first one.
Right, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So is that acceptable, Zihar, your forestry condition is acceptable to the seconder?
Yep.
All right, all in favor of the motion? You have your approval. Aaron.
Thank you.
Number 13, 222 Rhodes Avenue. Purpose of this application is to construct a parking pad in the front yard of a lot occupied by an existing two-story detached dwelling. Before us in this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from transportation right-of-way, staff reports from transportation and urban forestry. We have support from 226 Rhodes Avenue. So, and your name?
Rawia Al-Amin from Jaima Architects on behalf of the owner. We just wanted to confirm that the variance requested is minor and the proposal is desirable for the property and the area as there is intense street parking activity due to nearby retail on Gerard, places of worship on the street and residential use. And there is many front yard parking precedents on the same street. We have photos if you want to look at some of them.
So
We have,
transportation does not object.
no, yeah. And we have a permit to remove the tree in the front yard. And we have a letter of support from the neighbor.
Forestry condition? Forestry 1 and 2?
1 or 2? 2.
Okay. Yeah, could you just spell out your name for
Yeah,
the
sure.
record?
Rawya Alameen. Welcome.
All right, does anybody have any questions of the agent?
I did see in this case that there are a number of other parking pads in a similar configuration along the street. But I did have one question for you. Were you going to use permeable pavers?
We're proposing permeable pavers, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any further questions? If not, do we have a motion?
I'd like to move to support. I think this is relatively straightforward.
Yeah, do you want, subject to forestry conditions 1 and 2?
Yes.
Okay, and do you want to make a condition that there be permeable pavers?
Yes, thank you.
So in the drawings, we just accorded the drawings with, it says porous paving on the site plan.
Yeah, but I don't think it's so complicated, just
Put down
to say in accordance with the plans, if we can just say a condition is permeable paving. Can you, do you second the motion?
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
Okay, all in favor? Have your approval.
Thank you.
Number 14 is held. We move to number 15, 181 Hudson Drive. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story detached dwelling by constructing a third-story addition. We have before us in this application material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from planning and urban forestry, ravine and natural feature protection, and Toronto and Region Conservation Authority. We have 7 form letters in support from addresses on Hudson Drive and Heath Street East. Your name, sir?
My name is Jonas Brandon. I'm the homeowner.
Right.
Hi, Mom.
Okay, can you tell us about this?
Sure. So in 2018, I bought a property, 181 Hudson Drive. We'd been waiting about 6 years to find a property like this. We live in the neighborhood. The home is 100 years old. It had been occupied by the former owner for 60 years. Our plan was principally to replace the roof. The shape of the roof is a hip shape, and we were basically going to a gambrel or barn-shaped roof. So really a pretty simple change. We're using the existing footprint, and there's no addition or anything of that nature. Because the property backs onto the ravine, we were subject to a number of additional processes, TRCA, RFNP, which we've been through completely. We have their support of the application, and we've also, our neighbors are all, even anyone in visual distance and a little bit beyond that, is in support of the application as well.
Okay, so I just wanted to ask you about variance number 3, the height of the height of the building, 10.39 meters. Is that, as I understood it from your application, you had to lift the roof up to make the third floor habitable?
I'm 6 feet tall, and so as I understand it, the area allows for a 11-meter height of the building, so we're under that. It's that the shape of the roof is kind of going from this hip shape to this shape. And then in keeping with that kind of Dutch colonial or barn style, the facades on the front and the back, so the east and the west, are flat rather than sloped.
So I was wrong. It's not the height that's it's of the house. It's the height of the front and rear exterior walls that's 10.39 meters.
Right. That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right, does anyone have any further questions? Do we have a motion?
I have a motion to support or to approve.
All right.
I'll move to second.
Seconder, all in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 16, 1468 Dundas Street West. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing 3-story mixed-use building with 2 dwelling units by constructing a rear 3-story addition with a second-floor deck and converting the second-floor dwelling unit into an office workshop space. And before us, we have material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from planning and transportation services. We also have we were just handed this morning a letter from Councillor Anna Beleo. So she tells us no objections, which we know. Your name, sir?
Kyle O'Brien, the architect. And the owner is also here with me, Carolina Ladiera.
Okay.
Should I tell you about the proposal?
Yeah.
Sure.
Some information.
So rather than building out the maximum as of right zoning envelope, the proposed project it intends to remove the existing addition to the rear that you can see it there, clad in asphalt shingles. We're proposing to extend the block wall up vertically to include 2 additional floors. And then the proposal also includes a single-story open-air structure to provide outdoor amenity space for the second floor, as well as to cover some of the activities that happen to the rear of the building, such as all of the activities related to the eating establishment on the ground floor, such as loading, unloading, and refuge storage. And so the variances that we're seeking approval today include, firstly, we want to increase the non-residential floor index to 2 times the area of the lot, so that the second and part of the third floor could be used as artist studios, workshops, and office space. Secondly, we want to decrease the setback from the lot line opposite the laneway from 7.5 meters to 4.37 meters. And so it's important to note here that the setback isn't in reference to the 3-story addition, but instead just that 1-story deck that extends off of to the rear of the property. The next variance is to decrease the setback from the center line of the laneway from the required 3.5 meters to 2.5 meters. And as we mentioned in the submitted cover letter, essentially the neighboring building to the west side, which you see there, as well as our required exit stairs, are both set back 2.5 meters from the center line of the laneway. So essentially what we're doing is drawing a line there, and then that's going to be the extent of our new proposed outdoor amenity space.
Okay.
And then lastly, there's 2 variances related to parking. As you can see from the photograph, a car does fit, but it doesn't fit with the required dimensions by the zoning bylaw. So that's essentially a variance that we're seeking as well, to reduce the number of parking from 1 to 0.
So the issue is the setback from the center line of the lane.
Correct.
And I understand your position is because the neighbor doing it, we should be able to do it too, because you won't be able to extend the lane. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, essentially, we just want the additional area on the proposed outdoor amenity space. Because we already have the required exit stair as well as their building there, we're not sure how that they would widen that laneway to 3.5 meters.
Well, they'd expropriate the property next door, and they'd expropriate your property, and they'd expand. But if you move it back a meter, then they don't have to expropriate any of your property. So that's what they're asking.
Would they still not need to expropriate because the stair is in the way?
Well, then they'll expropriate.
They'll expropriate.
Theirs will be gone.
Could they just essentially do the same for the deck when that time comes?
Whatever they need to get the appropriate setback, they'll do.
So right now, essentially, we're asking for this variance to
So
go
is
through.
there some
And
way you can comply with the 3.5 setback?
we could reduce the length of the deck. It's something that we could do, but just given the fact that the stairs are there and the building is there, we thought that it wouldn't be an issue.
Okay. So it would make it easier for me, at least, I can't speak for the other members of the panel, to approve the application if variance number 3 was eliminated. In other words, you're going to comply.
Let me just have a brief moment with my client to make sure that's
Okay. No, it's stairs, existing stairs.
Okay, we'd be satisfied with eliminating that variance, assuming that the other variances would go through.
Okay, well, does anyone have any further questions?
You asked all the questions.
Okay, we have a motion.
I have a motion to approve, given the item number 3 is being removed.
Okay.
As amended.
As amended.
Yes, number 3. Do we have a seconder? Sarah, okay. All in favor? You have your approval.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Number 17, 5 Humber Hill Avenue. The purpose of this application is to construct a new 3-story detached dwelling with an integral garage, rear basement, walkout, and rear first and second story decks. Before us on this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, reports from planning, ravine and natural features protection, tree protection and plan review, and Toronto and Region Conservation Authority, and we have a letter of concern from 3A Humber Hill Avenue. Your name, sir?
Hi, my name is Navidar Bobby. I'm the agent on behalf of the owners of the property. We have 3 variances before you. I would like to start with going over the variances. So variance number 1 is in regards to the wall height. So this is a flat roof. I'd like to bring your attention. We're proposing a multi-story building where it's kind of, we have a shift of levels from the front to the back. Therefore, we are only proposing this height towards the back of the house. We've talked to planning, we've talked to the neighbors, they have no concerns whatsoever. So this height variance is only for the rear portion of the house, not the front. We do meet the height variance at the front of the house.
On this diagram, where's the front?
It's on the left side. The front is the left side, yep. So the next one is actually the FSI, which is pretty much in keeping with the neighborhood and the existing structures, even with the neighboring properties that are semi-detached and they were built almost 20 years ago. I would like to also bring to your attention that there's a condominium building being built right across the property, which kind of changes the whole neighborhood and the way it's perceived. The number 3 variance is in regards to the rear yard setback, which again we spoke with the neighbors. Both neighbors we're okay with extending the house further, and we're, again, right within line of the neighboring property at 3A. Everybody preferred to have a wider side yard setback rather than the rear yard. These properties back into a ravine, which does not impact anything and actually creates a nice view. In regards to the letters that we have, the TRCA, we've gone back and forth with them, and they're in support of the application. They have no objections to it. Same thing with ravine protection, forestry. They wanted to have a condition that we make an application, which has already been submitted. And the letter of concern that we have from number 3A is in regards to construction. And
We have no mandate with respect.
Exactly. So we've already spoken with them. The owners are taking the next level measures in order to make sure the owners are satisfied. In regards to the staff report, they have suggested that we install a 1.5 meter privacy screening on the second floor balcony on the back towards the south side of the property, which we are completely okay with.
All right, thank you. Any further, anybody have any questions? We have a motion.
Yeah, I have a motion to approve with the recommendation from the planning.
All right, subject to forestry condition number one.
Number one, right.
And the planning condition with respect to screening.
That's right.
Okay. You have a seconder, all in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 18 and 19 are held. Number 20, 1636 Bathurst Street. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story detached house by constructing a rear two-story addition with a rear ground floor deck and a below-grade integral garage with a new driveway and curb entrance. The existing rear detached garage will be demolished. Before us in this application, we have material submitted by the applicant and one form letter in support from 1638. Your name, sir?
Morning, sir. My name is Franco Romano, and I'm here on behalf of the owner.
Yes.
This is an application that proposes an addition. The current dwelling has a sloped roof. It's a sloped shallow roof, and what you'll see on the overhead there is the outline of the existing building with a broken line in the footprint, and then the existing roof is above it. So the proposal is to do a building addition. You'll see that the property slopes from left to right. That's front to back. It slopes up. And that rises also from the street line, Bathurst Street. So you'll see the measurement on the left, 7.8 meters. For the most part, that is a measurement that is taken from below grade, so underground. You'll see the building at the rear is 6.7 meters in height. So the height variance is influenced by the topography. It's still a two-story building. It's in keeping with the two stories that are found along the street on the same side of the street, as well as the apartments and condos across the street, which are actually raised in elevation. One other thing you'll also see, and I can show you another graphic, is that the below-grade garage is a technical below-grade garage because you'll see that the street is actually lower than where the floor level of the garage is going to be, and I can show you some photographs that show vehicles that park with an incline. So it is a positive slope to the street. Yeah. And in terms of if we go back to the other graphic, the building length is only for that cantilevered second story. The first story is 17 meters in length. So I've explained the eaves is basically in response to the existing side yard setback because the building addition is utilizing the existing side walls and just extending to the rear. And the floor space index from 0.4 to 0.63 is modest compared to what we see along the street. There are other dwellings that are in excess of 0.6 and also apartments that are in excess of, well, they're approaching 2 times
So where is
floor space index.
36 on Bathurst? Where is it?
It's just south of Eglinton.
Oh, okay.
South of, it's about 3 properties south of Croydon. So we'll see dwellings there. There's a property map here, and just within the same block, you've got dwellings that are much longer than the proposal, and the proposal would be in keeping with that length within the same block and shorter than buildings that are found nearby. If you go on the north side of Croydon, you'll see that buildings occupy the entirety of the lot.
And lots of multiple units.
Lots of multiple units. It's on Bathurst Street, so there's a variety of dwelling types, detached, multiples, apartments, condos.
Okay. Does anybody have any further questions? We have a motion.
I move to accept, to approve.
All right, do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank
Thank
you.
you kindly. Have a good day.
Okay, that's, all right. Would you please keep the noise down because we're having trouble hearing? So we now have to go back to those that have been held. First one is number 6, 403 Kingston Road. Is the applicant for Kingston Road here? All right. All right. In opposition? Is the opposition here? Come forward and sit in this row of seats on my left. Sorry. All right, so purpose of this application is to legalize and to maintain the rear ancillary structure that was converted into a dwelling without a building permit.
I have actually submitted a written request for a deferral.
All right, would you just hang on and
sorry.
let me finish?
Sorry about that.
My presentation. All right, and before us, we have material submitted by the applicant. We have staff reports from planning and engineering. We have 23 form letters in support. We have correspondence in opposition from 338 Kenilworth Avenue. Okay, and your name, please?
My name is Jennifer Chow. I'm representing the homeowners as the applicant.
Okay, and you are asking for a deferral? Is that
Yes, that's correct.
What's the purpose of the deferral?
The purpose of the deferral is that we need more time. This is because that we received the planning staff report on Friday afternoon and spoke with the planning staff on that day as well. The main reason is that actually the planning department is in support of garden suites. However, this is too premature because according to Stephanie, the planner, that there is indeed a city council meeting in 2018 that had requested the council, the planning department, to report back in the fourth quarter of 2019, which we just hit. So basically, they are indeed looking to include suites on appropriate properties without laneway suites within the city of Toronto. So our property would be considered a garden suite under this definition, and we believe that just basing on the changes that has been made with laneway suites, it was originally passed in 2018 in August, and within 4 or 5 months, originally it was only allowed in Toronto East York. In February, they actually allowed it in all of Toronto. Just being with the understanding of the changes with the zoning bylaw and the Planning Act, seemingly the City of Toronto would probably be changing and have new implements in the next couple of months. Moving forward with a committee of adjustment with the committee of hearing the application and basing the decision on current zoning bylaws and zoning Planning Act, we believe it's too premature. And we understand that there is indeed a request for a rezoning application.
When did they ask to have it scheduled?
Yeah.
And there is also an understanding with the rezoning application. The reason is we cannot make a decision with even move forward with a rezoning application. There's a lot of questions that the planning staff themselves are uncertain with. They did suggested us to make a pilot project with a neighboring property, but there are a lot of fees requiring to that and questions that simply 2 business days we cannot make a decision since it was given to us on Friday. And if we are to withdraw this minor variance application, it just seems quite unfair since the fees already been paid and there's just a lot of options that we don't have thorough sort of answers in order to move forward, and we believe it would be unfair to move forward with the Committee of Adjustment at this moment.
All right, so there's no bylaw permitting a garden house on two houses on a lot unless it's a laneway house, correct?
Currently, but it is in
But they're
written,
considering it, but they're not necessarily going to say, okay, you can have two houses on any lot, because there's all kinds of conditions. I mean, we see on a laneway house, for example, they have certain conditions that you have to comply with. So there's no certainty as to whether, even if they say you can have two houses on a lot, that this one's going to pass.
exactly, and we
And we have deferrals for 3 months, and we don't know when they're going to pass any bylaw, if they're going to pass it in your favor. And I don't think we want to keep this on our list to come back. But why don't you, I mean, this was something that you made your application knowing that it wasn't permitted.
but the rezoning sort of suggestion was only made on Friday, and
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, this application was filed in April. It was subject to the pre-hearing circulation process. My understanding was planning had relayed these concerns prior to us issuing the notice of public hearing.
Okay, so you're requesting a deferral on an if-come maybe basis that the city may change the bylaw, is that correct?
it's not that. The whole reasoning with the deferral is actually, we want to sit down with the planning department to see where the options, because they spoke to me that they are in favor of garden suites and they would actually look at this as a pilot project, but they themselves have a lot of answers that cannot be made.
All right, but the planning department doesn't pass the bylaw, it's the city council. And we don't know when it's getting to city council. Okay, so we could hear from the opposition as to the deferral application. Yes, please come to the podium and give us your name and your address.
Thank you. My name is Alexandra Scott. I live at 338 Kenilworth Avenue. We object to the applicant's request for a deferral today for exactly the reasons you've stated. At this point, there is no mechanism to allow for garden suites. The bylaw is not in place. It's only being contemplated. And to allow this to essentially just be kicked down the road for when that may come into effect does not seem to be fair. This application has been ongoing for a year. I am aware that the planning department did raise these issues back in May with an email to the applicant saying they would not be able to support this application. So I don't think it's accurate to say that this Friday was the first time that they had noticed that this would not be supported.
So presumably they had discussions with the planning after that? After they were told it would not be supported?
That's what they say. I don't have any information as to what discussions they've had. That being said, the planning report does not have any mention about wanting this to be a pilot project for garden suites, and one would think if they wanted that, they would have said that. What they recommended is that this application be refused.
Is this presently being used as a
Yes, this is.
dwelling unit?
Yes, this has been illegally converted over a year ago, and there is a tenant living there and has been living there for a full year.
Before the application was made?
Yes, we reported this condition to the city, and the order to comply came as a result, and this has been a year to get to this point. So in our view, this is a delay tactic. The applicant would like to keep his tenant living in the garage, and on the eve of this hearing, he's realized that the planning is going to recommend refusal, and so this is a delay tactic. Rezoning application was available to him a year ago. They chose to go with a minor variance application instead, and we're all here, we've taken time from our work, and it should be heard. Thank you.
Questions of Ms. Scott? Sorry. Okay. No, it's okay.
Do you mind reminding me, are you one of the neighbors?
So we live at 338 Kenilworth Avenue. Do you want to put that on there? Our property, it's kind of a strange situation because Kenilworth Avenue and Kingston Avenue, Kingston Road, diagonally abut to each other. So this is a photograph of a view from standing in my backyard looking at the garage.
We're not discussing the merits at this point, but
Right.
they are
I see.
adjoining.
Adjoining properties.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
It's No.
Okay.
Okay, the applicant, do you have anything further to add? Yeah, no, with respect to the deferral, do you have anything further to add? We understand your position.
Just with respect to the deferral, is we obviously would like to legalize this property in the most appropriate method, and that's the reason why we needed to see where our options are. But just to remind you, the whole reason for legalizing this unit is actually to house his elderly father, who's actually been living there, who is a 90-year-old man. So that's the reason why this unit or this tenant was created, is actually the property owner's father. And we're not creating it for another tenant use. It's not additional income in this case.
Yeah, okay. We're just dealing with the deferral and not the merits of the situation.
I understand.
Thank you very much. All right, nobody has any questions. Now we'll deal with the deferral. Do I have a motion with respect to approving or refusing a deferral?
I would move that we refuse deferral.
Seconder?
I would move that we,
No, we have a motion. You either
I'll second that.
second the motion or, okay. All in favor of refusing the deferral? Your deferral is refused. We will proceed today with the application.
First off, I would just like to show the letter of support that we have received.
Yeah, no, we understand you have support, but we also understand that a second building on the lot is not approved, so is not legal at this point. So you're going to have everybody in the city who wants a second building on your lot. That's not going to persuade us.
This is actually a different situation because it's an existing structure. It's not just a...
Existing what?
It's existing structure that's been there. It was built prior to...
As a garage.
It was a coach house. There's nothing in terms of extension of height. It hasn't been changed. So all the changes has been made were interior.
Oh, but somebody's living there now. It's the nature of the property has changed.
I understand the nature of the property has been changed, and I understand that it's still premature, but the City of Council is obviously looking of ways to provide affordable housing in the City of Toronto. I understand there's no specific definition currently for garden suites, and this doesn't comply with the laneways because there's no public lane. But then that right-of-way entry is still a shared, I understand it's a shared driveway, but in terms of just changing the neighborhood or whether it's desirable or not, we're not creating a new structure.
Yeah.
The only thing is additional.
My concern is that with laneway houses, for example, you have to have, there's certain conditions that apply. I don't know exactly what they are, but you have to be sure that a fire engine can get there for the safety of your tenant, so that a fire engine can get there, that there's access to public utilities, and that it's close enough to within so many meters of a fire hydrant. So all those conditions have to be in place. We have no idea whether they are or they aren't, and those are things that if there is ever a bylaw that says you can have two buildings on one lot, aside from a laneway suite.
I understand those
conditions. They're gonna put in conditions. They have to be complied with.
I understand those conditions has to be complied before the building permit will even be issued. So instead of it being a planning standpoint,
but before it can be approved as a second dwelling on the lot. Yeah. Okay, so I think we've heard essentially what you have to say. Unless you have anything new, we're going to hear from your neighbors.
The only thing I just want to reiterate is that I understand that we're converting an existing structure, but this is not for additional income. I think the biggest concern with a lot of the City of Toronto is additional income for...
We're not concerned about income.
Okay, but just to reiterate, it's just his own father is living in that additional suite.
I appreciate that,
yeah.
but he may be putting his father at risk by having him back there without the safety.
And yes, we read through the opposition's letter, and we actually, to address the privacy issues, we had changed the windows that are actually directly abutting the property lines to glass blocks. And one existing window has already been blocked. So to address the conditions with privacies, that's what's been made. Because at the end of the day, the structure itself is existing, and we can't do anything to alter that.
Thank you. Ms. Scott? So we're now dealing with the merits, Ms. Scott.
Should I get this to you? Thank you. I just want to address quickly before I forget something the applicant has said about having his elderly father live in the structure. It is true that currently his elderly father is living in the structure, but it doesn't matter from a zoning perspective who is living there. It matters that someone is living there.
No,
And-
you're right. Once he gets approval, anybody can move.
Absolutely, and obviously our concern is that a tenant would be there long-term. So I have some issues with this application, first of all, that don't represent the true nature of what is actually being proposed. The application states that the current use of the garage has existed since the construction of the building. That's not the case. It's obviously noted as a garage on the survey that was included in the application, and it was used as a garage and used as storage until last year. The plans also suggest that the main residence on 403 Kingston Road is a single-family home, which would mean that this garage is the second unit on the lot. But that's also not the case. We're aware that it is a legal, the house at 403 Kingston is a legal triplex, meaning that the garage would actually be the fourth unit on that lot. And I expect that's why accurate plans haven't been submitted. With respect to the signed support letters, I don't want to spend too much time on that, but again, they ask for support to convert a coach house into a secondary suite. This isn't a coach house, it's a garage, and I think that the use of the words coach house are misleading, and it implies that over time, or at some point in time, this building was used as a residence, and again, there is simply nothing to suggest that that's the case. No letters of support have been provided for what is actually being proposed, turning a garage into a second house on one lot. Obviously, our main objection to this is the effect on our property. Our property at 338 Kenilworth Ave is directly affected by the existence of the second residence on the 403 Kingston property. Even if the city eventually approves secondary suites in buildings that do not abut a lane, our view is that this specific building, it would still not be suitable. The garage is directly on our property line. It actually juts into our property. There are windows that currently open into and look into our yard.
I mean, it juts in, I didn't understand. Is it actually on your property, or
It
is
is-
it just on the line?
So we both have irregular lots, and you can see that is the garage, and it is jutting into our backyard. So there are two windows.
But it's within its property, its own property line.
The property line surrounds the garage. So back in 1923, whenever these houses were built, I anticipate that the garage was built first, and then the properties were built around it. But it is directly on the property line. And actually, the eaves troughs go over the property line onto our property. So again, I mean, we're an understanding that this is a garage. It's not going to be knocked down. It is an existing structure. That's fine. But it's certainly different between having a storage structure there and having someone actually living there. You can see that currently there are windows that open into our yard. We have blocked one of them for safety and privacy reasons. We understand the applicant has proposed turning these into glass block windows. Obviously, that's an improvement, but it doesn't change the fact that there will still be a view into our yard and the proximity to our house.
Can I ask you about access? I mean, I've mentioned it 3 times, I think, about access by fire,
Yes.
ambulance, et cetera, particularly a 90-year-old
Yep.
man. Is there proper access to that property?
So now if you look, the photograph now shows this is a mutual driveway that goes, my house is to the left. This is the access that the tenant uses every day. We see him going to and from. I believe there is also pedestrian access out the other way onto Kingston Road. I don't know how wide it is. It's certainly narrower than this, and again, the tenant uses this as his access.
So how wide is this?
I'm not sure, maybe 2 meters?
Have you ever
A vehicle couldn't drive through there. It's too...
drive your car?
No, you couldn't.
Okay, well, you won't get a fire engine down.
Right, yeah. No, you certainly couldn't get a car through there. So obviously, they've realized that there's issues with these windows, which is why, again, 2 weeks ago, they changed the plans.
Time is coming to a close. So if you could wrap.
Sure. Our view, again, is that regardless of whether or not, this obviously isn't on a lane, there's no lane access, but regardless of that, this is not suitable for many reasons. There's privacy issues, there's the proximity to our home, the 7-meter rear setback between the garage and property line isn't even, there's not even 7.5 meters between the garage and our house. It's simply too close to our house. This is not what...
It's supposed to be 7.5 from the primary residence on that lot, I believe. That's a laneway house. I don't know what would happen.
Right, well, but the variances has said that the zoning review talks about the fact that the back of the garage and the side of the garage have a 0-meter setback to the property lines, and it says that they're supposed to have, I think the side is supposed to be smaller, but the rear should be 7.5 meters, but it's 0 and 0, and it's you know, mere feet away from our home. So, well, I'm certainly appreciating that.
That's the problem here, is that I think the primary house is supposed to be 7.5 from the rear lot line. If we're talking about a secondary house, it would have to have its own byline, would be different. So, but there's supposed to be 7.5 meters, I believe, in the laneway house between the primary residence and the laneway house.
Right.
So I don't know whether there is here or not, but it doesn't matter because we don't have a bylaw permitting a secondary residence.
Exactly, and so
Unless anyone has any questions of Ms. Scott, I think we can just have some rebuttal from the applicant. I think we've got your point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, just to rebut the firefighting provision, it actually only requires 1 meter on the property, and I can show you, basically, there is space right here, the most narrow dimension is at 1.1 meter. Sorry.
It's 1 meter because there's a fire hydrant nearby. Where is the fire hydrant?
I don't have it, but it's a 40, but it's a 50 meter, so 50 meters circumference.
Do you have the information of that fire hydrant?
Not currently, but I'm certain there will be tons on.
Subject to the development engineer.
Exactly, that's understandable.
But you haven't started the process before this application.
Because we were under the impression that that is a building permit related
No,
issue.
it's going to be under planning review.
Understood that.
I'll let you continue. What's your second point?
The second point is that understanding. They were understanding that the fact that we have changed the windows to address privacy, because anything else, it's an existing condition. We cannot move the eaves. We cannot move the setbacks. And for laneway suites, you are actually allowed a 0 setback if there are no openings. I understand that we have glass blocks windows there, but if you look at Ontario Building Code, glass blocks are allowed to be used when windows are not permitted to have when walls are not permitted to have any openings. So these are the things that we did address, because when we look into the existing structure, these are the best things that we can do to allow for the structure. And I understand that back in the days, currently it's not used as a driveway, but previously, we have a photo. I understand it probably is not in context why it wasn't used as a driveway, but this is just to show you that the homeowners at one point did use this as a driveway on the right of way. So that is the driveway that is actually shared between 338 Kenilworth and 403 Kingston Road. That was at one point used as a shared driveway.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask questions?
Yes, go ahead.
I do have a question for you. So,
No, he's going to ask a question.
All right, so what is the current size of that main house, the GFA?
The main floor area is 40 square meters, and the attic area in the second floor is,
Oh, no, you're talking about the primary house?
Yeah, the primary house, what's the size of the primary house?
the main dwelling, existing basement area, walk-up, main floor. So it's 67 square meters plus 65 square
How
meters.
about the size of the garage?
The size of the garage is 40 square meters on one floor.
Square meter.
Yeah.
Okay, and do you think this is a minor variance? I mean, by looking at the whole implication of the,
So when you look through the variances, basically there are two sets of variances. The first set of variances basically doesn't allow this on the property because they're seeing it as a separate dwelling on the unit, and it's not looking at it as a secondary unit, it's not looking at it as a laneway suite, it's not looking at it as a garden suite. But understanding the actual context of it, we are only converting an existing structure. And when we're only converting the existing structure, we believe we're not really affecting the neighborhood and sort of causing any, understanding there's the privacy concern with the neighbors. We see it as a minor conversion because we're just changing an existing structure. And we're not increasing any height or size. And that's why I believe it falls under the minor variance. And that understanding the planning department and the zoning bylaw is actually moving forward to support garden suites down the future. Yes, we might be a little too advanced at this point, but I understand that the City of Toronto is moving towards that.
but you do understand that these numbers at the end of the day is about the quality of the social fabric, right?
Yes, and we do have a lot of letter of support I can show you in graphic.
Right. Oh, yeah, this is the last round. then. Right.
So the property in green is our property, and everywhere else that's been colored darker is the letter of support that we have. So they are understanding of the nature of the property, the fact that there is going to be a secondary or a separate suite in the rear.
Right. No more questions?
No more question, thank you.
Thank you. All right, does anyone else have a question? Are we ready for a motion? All right. Make a motion, Cynthia.
I'd like to move that we adopt the planning staff recommendation to refuse this application as stated in
Yeah.
staff report.
Right. Do we have a seconder of that motion?
I'll second
All right. All in favor of refusing the application? Your application is refused. Thank you. Now we're moving to number 7, 50 Pristine Avenue. Purpose of this application is to construct a new two-story detached dwelling with an integral garage. We have before us materials submitted by the applicant. We have a staff report from planning and from transportation services. Yes, your name, sir?
Tom Garzelli. I'm the authorized agent for 50 Pristine.
Through you, Mr. Chair, are the people in opposition still here for this application? Can you come and sit
could you
forward,
come
please, so the
forward?
committee members know you're here?
Okay, were you able to make any progress with
We did, actually. We spoke to the neighbor. They share the backyard, rear lot line together. One of his concerns was the total height. He had a number of 9 meters, whereas the zoning bylaw allows us at 8.5, and we're asking for a variance of 8.75. What he had understood...
satisfied with the height?
He is. He now understands that it's...
I appreciate that. Pardon?
He now understands that it's taken from the crown of the road, center line of road, and not from the high point of the dwelling that's there today. Because that would, at 9 meters at that point, he would say is just too high. It's really 10 inches is what we're asking for, from 8.5 to 8.75.
Were there any other issues?
The other concern was in the master bedroom on the second floor. that looks at the rear elevation, or the rear itself, is that it was going to be looking into his backyard if the flat roof was going to be used as a patio. That is not the intent here. There is no guardrail on the patio. It's a Juliet balcony where we've demonstrated that we've put a guardrail where you can't step onto the flat roof. My client actually has also said that he's willing to do a sloped roof instead of a flat roof on top of the covered rear porch. Just to eliminate any concerns if this would ever turn into.
If you intend to do that, would that change any variances?
No, not at this point. No.
Okay. All right, so were there any other concerns that you discussed with the neighbors?
That's it.
Okay. So does anyone have any questions? No, well, I'm going to get to him. Any questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Neighbor, could you please come forward and give us your name and your address and address the issues that the agent...
It's Mike DeClara. I'm at 1629 Woodbine Heights Boulevard, which is backs onto it. And they have a real drastic slope from the sidewalk up. So my initial concern was the variance on top of, which is approximately 30 inches higher than the sidewalk, would become an issue. But it was explained to me that that variance is taken from the center slope of the road and does not take the current grade of the house into consideration. If that's the case, then I'm okay with it.
Okay, and the other issue about the balcony?
Yeah, that's fine. We talked, and that's a non-issue now.
All right, so you're...
I'm okay with any of the
You don't
variances.
have any further opposition?
No.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Unless someone has any questions of the applicant, I don't believe we need to hear from him any further. And perhaps we can have a motion?
A motion to approve the application.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Are you in favor, Kathleen? Yes.
They wanted it
To follow the drawings.
at the
Oh, yeah, in accordance with the,
plans of June 13th, which may, I don't know if you want to add with the exception of the roof, that just in case the applicant wants to change it to a sloped roof, as he said, which is over the back.
I'm fine with that. I was working with planning during the process, and so there was 2 or 3 iterations of drawings. So the planning just wants to make clear that when we apply for permit, that we're using the latest and greatest iteration, and we're okay with that. Yes.
so who made the motion, Aaron?
I'll make the motion again.
No, just, did you made the motion?
Yeah.
So is it subject then, you're satisfied be subject to the condition, the planning condition?
That's correct. And your agreement with, without the balcony on the...
No, we don't have the agreement.
You know the agreement
It's not
there?
a condition.
Oh, that's kind of sorry.
There's no agreement, really.
Okay. So that will be only subject to the planning.
Sahir, are you
Yes,
content with that?
I'm in favor.
All right. All in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Subject to the condition.
Yes.
What is this? Now we move to number 9, 180 Broadview Avenue. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2.5-story semi-detached dwelling into a 3-unit converted dwelling and constructing a rear 3-story addition with a 3rd-story deck and a new front porch. Before us, in this application, we have a material submitted by the applicant, a planning report in opposition from 73 Hamilton Street. Sir, your name, please?
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jim Sod from Paradigm Architecture and Design. I am the agent on behalf of the owner representing them today.
Yes, have you discuss these issues with?
We did. Unfortunately, I don't believe we came to a resolution, so I think we've both agreed that we will just present our viewpoints and allow the committee to make their decision today.
Okay, thank you. Please let us have your presentation.
Okay, I'm going to put some images up, if you may. The subject property is identified there as 180 Broadview. It's a semi-detached dwelling, and the application is to take the existing dwelling unit, single-family dwelling unit, actually I believe it's a two-family dwelling unit, and convert it to a three-family dwelling unit. In so doing, the owner wishes to tear down a decrepit, there's a 2.5-story main house component that with an existing two-story rear extension that had been always there, and then a 1-story little piece on the very tail end that's kind of a decrepit, falling down shed structure. It's in very poor condition structurally, needed to be removed anyway. The proposal, which I'll show you the extent of what the footprint will become versus what it currently is, looks like this. What I really want to point out here is the dashed line where you see the portion in white, proposed alteration, first and second floor. That dashed outline is the current outline of the building footprint. As I mentioned, there's a 2-story component, and the last little leg of that is a 1-story little square bump out. And our proposed alteration, which is going to go up 2 stories to match the grayed out portion next to that existing 2-story addition that's labeled, is essentially not extending any further out into the rear yard. Part of the complaints that we've received from the immediate neighbor to the north, as well as the neighbor across the laneway to the west, are that we are overbuilding on the site, blocking views, sunlight, and extending out so far into the rear yard, and also that the rear yard is currently entirely a concrete paved coverage that accommodates parking. And as part of community planning's recommendations, we have agreed to turn that all into permeable paving to allow for drainage to take place on our site versus runoff. They had one other recommendation, which I'll just dig up here, that the in building up the extension, that our main wall did not extend any further than the third floor or third floor assembly, and we are definitely not doing that. We're totally on board with what they're recommending, and those were their only 2 recommendations. So we feel that we are in compliance with that. We seem to be complying with all of the other 4 tests that committee is concerned with regards to minor variances. I will also add a couple of more images here that sort of display the context of this development with respect to the neighboring community and streetscape.
Okay, you're getting close to your 5 minutes.
I understand. You can see here, 180 is the one with the red dot on the roof there, and all of the neighboring developments have anywhere from 2-story to 1-story rear extensions already, particularly the one to the south of us, which is the one on the right. That's not the attached. That's part of the next set of semi-detached dwellings next to us. And if you continue down further, you'll see there's a particularly substantial 2-story rear extension, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units down. There's also another one, 2 units to the north. So we don't feel that this is overly ambitious, and we would hope that committee would be in approval. There is one more thing I'd like to point out, if I may.
But this is...
Our proposal calls for changing the front elevation of the house in order to accommodate the secondary unit from a code perspective. We were not able to share the protected stairwell, and ergo we have to create a secondary door facing the street. There were complaints about not adhering to the character of the streetscape of these older homes, and I would just like to point out that awnings have been changed previously from the neighbors from what you see further on down the street on the right-hand side. Pillars have all been gone. I don't find that the nature of our alterations are greatly reducing the character of the streetscape or affecting things in a negative way at all. As a matter of fact, if we were asked to extend that canopy in order to further obscure the fact of whether it's a doorway or a window, I don't think that would be outrageous.
Which one is your house?
I apologize.
Pardon?
We are the dark house right behind the blue car with the small awning over the doorway and the rounded window.
Anyone have any questions of Mr. Saab? All right, thank you. We'll hear from the neighbors now. All right, neighbors, do you have a spokesperson? All right, you're the only one going to speak? Unfortunately. All right. No, fortunate for us. Thank you. Your name, please.
Hi there. Name's Jim Constantinus. I live at 2042 George Street East.
Just a minute. 20 what?
2042 Gerard Street East.
Okay. Where are you in relation to this property?
Parents, that is my birth home, and 182 Broadview Avenue. So I'm here on behalf of my parents.
182 Broadview Avenue. Okay.
Yeah. They're the white house attached to the brown house where he said part of it was decrepit.
Right. I'm sorry. I thought you said Gerard for...
No, I live on Gerard. I don't live
You
with
live
my
on
parents.
Gerard.
I don't live with them.
All right. So you're speaking on behalf of your parents who live at 182
Yes.
Broadview, attached to this house.
Yeah, just because we're European doesn't mean we all have to live with our parents till we're 50. You guys get it, right? Okay. Our parents opposed to these changes that are being asked. I did have a long statement, about 5 minutes. I wrote it last night. I might hold off on it because...
Just tell us what they're complaining about, the impact that they see that these changes are going to...
They're asking to build out and up from the back. This decrepit component of their home was built illegally by the previous owner.
Well,
so no, but they want to tear it down and then now use that as the basis to build further out and further up. This will cause an issue with the sky view. My mom has a garden in the backyard, a vegetable garden. This will affect that. It will create issues with the snow, as more snow will create a bigger load on our side, as it won't be able to flow through with the air. Same in the warmer months, it will create additional runoff with water coming onto our side. They also want to build now a third floor deck. This is a 2-story home. It's not a 2.5. The attic is not accessible. And by the way, the home is currently rented to students. It's not a dual family home. It's always been a single family home. They're trying to mislead you. The previous owners were a single family. We knew them for years. But prior to that, same thing. My parents have been there since 1971. My Aunt Marika lives at 178. She can't come because she's in her 90s. And she has the same issues we do. We want to maintain the way the house is now as part of the neighborhood. And when I was doing some research, it did ask if this did fall within the 4 tests. If it was minor in nature, it is not, as it's trying to create changes on the exterior of the home and add to the footprint of the home. Is it appropriate and desirable development? It won't, because it will stand out. These decrepit, what do you call them for? These older homes have character. Yes, some have little awnings in the front, but they all have similar characters when you look at them. Is it keeping the purpose and intent of the zoning bylaw? It's not. The City of Toronto is losing all these large family dwellings. We're creating all these smaller condos. South on Queen Street, they're building tens of thousands new condos right now. On River Street, they built tens of thousands more. You're taking a single-family dwelling home and you're tearing it into a 3-unit home just to make more money. Where are families supposed to live in Toronto? It's harder as it is right now. I also read that regarding variances in the stability of our neighborhood's physical character as being one of the keys to Toronto's success. It states that while communities experience constant social and demographic change, the general physical character of Toronto residential neighborhoods endures. Physical changes to our established neighborhoods must be sensitive, gradual, and fit the existing physical character, and the new development respect and reinforce the general physical patterns in our neighborhood. This does not. This new home that they want to build is going to have 2 front doors. There is no other home on Broadview that I could see that has 2 front doors that was originally a semi-single family home. It's going to affect my parents' resale when they decide to sell. They don't want to sell. They love their neighborhood. We have family there. We have neighbors that we interact with all the time. The neighbors in the back. 2 neighbors. We have one neighbor that signed the letter, and we have another one that sent another one in. Nobody wants this development because it's going to alter the neighborhood that we live in. It's going to increase foot traffic. It's going to increase unknown people coming as tenancies change. It's going to cause concerns for my parents. The deck in itself is going to be a privacy issue because it's going to be above us and looking down. Now, he did show a photo, an aerial view of homes, and he saw one that there was an addition. One of those is a covered porch. That's Marika's house, my Aunt Marika's house. She covered it so the rain wouldn't hit her when she sits outside. It's not a unit that she lives in. She just sits there in a chair. Yeah.
Time is coming to a close. Please wrap up.
I think I'm done. Anyone want to say?
Anyone have any questions? All right, thank you. Mr. Saad?
Small image there of what we're proposing to do in terms of taking the awning across the front. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to look exactly like that, but the gist of it is that we were trying to tie in the awning from just being a small awning over the existing landing to the stair leading to the one door to go across the entire building to further disguise the fact that there are 2 doors. I don't think that that is a very obtrusive or offensive type of facade to add to the Broadview streetscape. Additionally, I did want to point out, although it does appear to be numerous amount of, well, not numerous, but a substantial amount of variances, for the most part, you can see that the nature of the variances are not large asks in terms of floor space index. We're only asking for 12% more than what's permitted. In terms of rear setback, it is only slightly more and 3.2 meters less than what is required, and so on.
But, variance number 4 talks about building depth. You already have I mean, you're replacing the 2-story addition, and then you're adding on to that. So 18.33 meters, it can be intrusive for the neighbors.
I would agree. If they, I mean, we weren't allowed to consider that 1 story as part of the existing building depth because that would have changed that number to show exactly the same number. Well, I think we've stuck out by an additional half a meter than what was there with that 1-story structure.
Okay, so, but there's a difference between a 1-story and a 2-story.
I agree with that 100%, and we do sympathize with the neighbors' concerns, but they are mainly with respect to natural light and views, and that is something that in terms of creating habitable spaces, these are 2-bedroom units. They're not just, that could house a good family. I know we have a situation where the housing stock is going down for single-family homes, but being able to provide homes for multiple families is not necessarily a bad thing and along the mandate of the official plan of Toronto.
What's the use of the building now?
It's currently single-family dwelling.
So there's 1 family in there?
Correct. The only reasons for these enlargements are not for luxury's sake. They're to make it habitable for 3 people.
Or 3
3 families, excuse me, yes.
3 units?
Yes.
So are there multiple units on the street?
I have to be honest, I'm not aware of that. I would highly suspect that that would be the case as everywhere else in Toronto. It's highly unlikely that every single one of those homes up and down Broadview are currently only serving 1 family.
Well, you're right. My daughter lived on Broadview for a while.
I could be mistaken.
Duplex or duplex.
Yeah, I wish I had the facts to support that. I'm not sure.
So where is this exactly? Broadview near Danforth or?
South of Dundas.
South of Dundas?
Yes, just north of a small street. What is it, sorry? Thank you, Kintyre. Further up the street, you will see a great mixed use of buildings from retail, residential, further closer to Dundas on the east side. There's Toronto Community Housing. There's a park across the street. There's an abundance of variety of different building types and character along the entire street from Queen stretching up to Dundas.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I do. I'm looking at your site plan, knowing that you're on the south side of your neighbor. Very unfortunate. All the sun is coming to that direction, as you know, and with 1 story, I'm just using, let's just say, a 45-degree cut. With the lot width and the 1-story building height, they can still enjoy some sunlight. But with that 2nd story, you are really completely changing the quality of life. So, I mean, I just want to bring that up. Do you have any comment on that? On how would you justify that as a minor implication on the quality of reaching the sunlight?
If I may just throw up that site plan to reference.
Please.
Sorry, that's the existing. Just a clearer drawing to look at. So, yeah, currently there, if you look to the north of where we say proposed alteration at 1st and 2nd floor, their 1-story addition ends where that line comes down. I'll point to it. That's the back of their 1-story current addition, and then beyond that, it goes up to 2 stories, very similar to ours, but their 2 stories sticks out further than our existing 2 stories. So yes, there is going to be some loss of sunlight. I can't dispute that, but there was also a tree in the backyard that we, through urban forestry, checked and found that we were permitted to remove. It was quite a large deciduous tree that was actually removed to help improve their natural light situation in the backyard, as well as facilitate parking on our site. So it's not that we're unsympathetic to their cause, it's just that we still feel.
When was that tree removed? Is that part of this addition?
It was, because the ownership is relatively new by my owner, and it was removed 3 months ago? Longer than that. Yeah, it's probably about 6 months ago.
That tree was on your property and was a substantial tree?
That's correct, but not substantial enough to require approval. It was approved as being permitted to be removed without an application, further application.
How far back? Where was that in relation to the back of your addition?
In that location that she just pointed to, the back top left corner of the property, which is the northwest corner.
I don't understand. I didn't quite understand. This is
That is correct.
This is where their two-story addition ends?
It's actually the one-story addition ends there.
What's this? This is
It's just backyard.
So it's this portion here that they're complaining about is going to cause them a problem.
Right, you can see the outline of the existing single-story there, and the fact of the matter is that
I think it's the whole thing.
The whole white box is,
Yeah, because it'll be all two-story.
right.
that is correct, yeah.
He's saying this part here with the outline, that's an existing one-story addition?
That's correct.
Two stories different than
Exactly, one story, they can still have the light, two become.
Okay.
quite different.
All right. Do we have any questions of Mr. Saad? Any further questions?
I do, just one last one. So let's just say the height. I mean, I'm not even sure if I should suggest that, but, so the second floor is basically the key of this application, am I right?
I would say yes.
You can negotiate, reduce the height, allow some sunlight.
It would greatly affect the usability of that unit.
The application as a whole is a two stories, when we make it this.
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We have a motion.
I have a motion to disapprove. To refuse, right?
Do we have a seconder? I'll second it. All right. All in favor? All right, the application is refused.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Number 10, 9 COBOURG Avenue. Yeah. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story detached dwelling into a two-unit building by constructing a third-story addition, a rear three-story addition with a side entrance and rear ground second and third floor decks, a new front porch and front basement walkout. One unit will occupy the main floor and basement, the other dwelling unit will occupy the second and third floors. And before us on this application, we have a material submitted by the applicant and correspondence from 1610, 1, 7, 13, and 11 COBOURG Avenue. And we have a letter. Have you seen this letter from the counselor? You have?
Yes, I do.
Okay, have you seen it?
Yeah, because they sent it to my
Okay. All right. Okay. Can we have your name, please?
Okay. Good morning, committees. My name is Rachel. I'm the applicant and the authorized agent of the house owner.
So you are Rachel Wang?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. This project is a proposed third floor on the existing two-story dwellings. Actually, today we apply two minor variances. The first one is the main wall height. The requirement is 7.5 meter, and we apply for 9.82 meter. For this one, we second minor variance is exterior stairs. It's zero setback from front line, but this is existing exterior stair of the existing porch. We are not to touch this one. This is existing situation. For the third minor variance application, we are going to remove it because we consider about the neighbor's opinion. We are not to apply for secondary suite, second suite in this house. We are going to build a single family house. So third one, we are not apply today.
Okay, so
Okay.
you want to eliminate, you want to delete variation number 3?
Yes, you are right.
Okay.
Correct. Okay, I'm going to explain the main wall height variance. So we discussed about this issue with the city planner. Actually, we put back front wall towards the rear yard 1.5 meter. You can see the drawing. So we offset 1.5 meter back. So, you see this one, right? This one? Yeah. We backed 1.5 meter. So the planner may agree with our propose. And the second one, we found in the same street, there's lots of third floor building on this street. You will see this picture. This is number 12. This is 12 COBOURG Avenue. This is a third floor as well, and the main wall height even higher than our project. This is 2 and 4 COBOURG Avenue as well. They are all 3 floors, and the main wall height is very high. Okay,
How does
that's
that
all.
compare? Is it higher than 9.82?
Close to, yeah. I just measure from the tape, that's it.
Yeah,
Okay, I don't have exactly their drawings.
All right.
Yeah. So that's all for my presentation.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions of Ms. Wang?
Just a very quick question. Can you
Okay.
go back to your section?
Okay, section?
So that setback, that offset on the third floor, was that recommended by the planning staff?
Yes,
So
yes,
that's a 40, I believe, is a 30
yes.
degree cut.
Yeah, that's why I put, you can see.
And you have no intent to put a terrace or balcony on top, right?
Sorry?
Are you going to put a terrace or there's no?
Of course.
You will?
Put what?
Are you going to put a balcony or a terrace?
No, just leave it as roof.
Okay. Okay, no more questions.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Neighbor?
Thank you.
I have to say I feel inadequate to...
Can we have your name?
Oh, my name's Andrea Kuzmich. I live at 11 Cobourg Avenue.
So is this is not, this is a detached house, right?
It's a detached house, but it's only 0.45 meters away from their house, Mr. Chen's house. The picture isn't there for it. Yeah, we don't need these pictures, though. All the houses on our side of the street are much smaller, but that has nothing to do. First, I'd like to ask for a deferral of this meeting on this project. First of all, because his sign was not visible for 10 days as appropriate, and I had sent an email about this on the 6th, and it wasn't appropriate in terms of size, color, and it didn't catch people's attention from the street.
So, well, we've already started discussing the merits, but
I'm
why do
sorry,
you
I
want
cannot hear you very well.
Pardon?
I cannot hear you very well.
Said we already started discussing the merits. Ms. Wang made her presentation. Why do you want a deferral?
There has not been enough time to assess this issue by the community. The sign was not up, and we also had this letter from the councillor to ask for a deferral so that they actually consult with the neighbors. There's been no consultation with the neighbors at all. And it's been a really tricky time that we got the notice. Many people on the street were away for the long holiday and didn't get it until like after the long holiday. And also many of us are parents, so it's the start of the school year. It's just conflicting with so many other things that have to get started at this time of year, including, I mean, yeah, so.
Can I ask you a question?
Please.
You mentioned that you have filed a complaint to the COA office that the sign was not visible, and what was the reply? So how did they respond to you when you said,
So then how did Mr. Chen respond? They put up a sign, but it was still not meeting the requirements. It's on dark green paper, not light green paper. It's not on cardstock. They did move it to outside the window so it could be visible, but it's still not legible from the street. At least that's my opinion.
did you make a second complaint?
Yes, I did make a second complaint, which is when I asked that this meeting be deferred.
Okay.
So when did you become aware of the application, before or after you received notice?
I had not even found my notice from my mail because I was away for 2 weeks. I was working and then I had a trip and I was working out of town. So I was out of town. When I returned back, I looked through all my mail. I still haven't been able to find the physical mail, so I only saw it when I talked to my neighbor, or I only heard about it when I talked to my neighbor after I returned, which is like the 3rd of August. I mean, 3rd of September. Sorry.
I was going to say 3rd of August.
I'm
So
sorry.
when did the notice become visible?
I don't know.
Oh, you must have been aware of the fact that it was a notice because you complained that it wasn't visible.
Yes, and exactly, I did complain it, and so many people in our street didn't know that it was happening either.
But you did.
Pardon?
You did because you saw the notice.
Well, I found out from my neighbor, and then I looked at the notice. She showed me the link online, which is when I started looking through everything. And of course, there's a huge learning curve to understanding these applications.
So are there other people opposing this application?
There's
a group?
There's many neighbors who have opposed this application, many opposing letters. But I just don't feel adequate to address their concerns.
So you don't want to even explain why it is not a minor application?
Okay, well, I can try to discuss it, but like I said, it feels to me that I'm not appropriate. I don't understand these lingos, these terminologies to discuss it. And
So essentially, there's 2 variances being requested. One is the wall heights. It's supposed to be 7.5 meters. They're asking for 9.82 meters. And then the second variation is exterior stairs not being closer to the lot line, the front lot line, I assume, yes, 0.6 meters, and they're at 0.0 meters. So those are the 2 variances that they're asking for.
they did also ask for a second unit, which,
They're not asking for that anymore. They've deleted that.
yeah, you see, I'm really not equipped to deal with these sudden changes like this. And it feels actually like a bit of a disconnect that they're saying that they don't want a second unit now when they have, 5 entrances, 2 which are located right in the front, like.
And you are the only person coming in today, right?
I'm sorry?
You're the only person coming in today?
I'm the only person who had a chance to. I had flexible work schedule to do so. But as I was saying, there's, an entrance to the basement and to the front door, like feet away from each other. Why do you need that? And then another entrance in the back, and an entrance on the second floor, and an entrance on the side.
Some houses have a lot of entrances. But
Right?
some houses have a lot of entrances, but that doesn't.
But this is totally out of character with the neighborhood, out of character with the aesthetics of the neighborhood. Even building that building on our side of the street, all the houses are not as tall. In fact, the current height of the house is, I would say, is the average side, is the average size.
All right, thank you. I mean, we started with the merits of the thing, and now you're asking for a deferral.
Well, I asked for a deferral before we went out, and then
Yeah.
I don't understand. I don't feel like I got my chance to ask for the deferral before you started the merits. You didn't even ask me to join the table.
All right, thank you. Please sit down. I'm just going to speak to Ms. Wang about the deferral. Wayne, please address the issue of deferral.
No. We can apply today, why we're gonna defer?
So you believe that you have followed the system according to the city staff?
Yeah, because we discussed with the city's planner many times, so they agree as the propose.
Would you like to respond to her
And
question
I have
about-
the letter, the email, signs, yeah, I can show you, we have visible. It's visible
You
sign.
send that to the city staff, right?
Yes, so,
Through you, Mr. Chair, the sign requirement is for the administration to clear. The process is the applicant has given the information, they are to post the sign, they send us a photograph, and they sign an affidavit swearing that it was posted
So it's
properly.
confirmed.
If there is a
Yeah, this is
the
this one.
posting of the sign is for tenants, registered owners of property receive notice in the mail.
Okay.
yeah, this is the side picture over there. And, yeah.
So whether the notice is visible or not, if it's posted properly, it's considered visible.
Some people like to challenge it, they can challenge it either through appeal or
Okay, but
Okay.
we don't, through you, Mr. Chair, we don't schedule the application until we have the affidavit from the applicant and a photograph showing that they've posted it. The signs are being revamped, if that helps. I would agree, it's not a great sign to be posting. There's many properties in the city that are quite large, and you can't post them in a place that's visible to the street just because of the nature of the lot. But this is what we have at the time, and this is the process that's been put in place.
the applicant has done what they
The applicant, for the purposes of the application, the applicant has complied with the posting of the sign.
All right, thank you. All right, this,
Anything you would like to add?
so, talk to us about the height. 9.82, I mean, this is already a hybrid situation, because you've talked about the merits. So
Yeah,
I see the height as the one variation that would cause a problem for the neighbors.
Yeah, for the main wall height, this is the main minor variance we apply today. And for this issue, we talk with the planner many times. I can show you the email she sent me. She satisfied our proposed drawing.
But let me put it this way. I understand, I believe that you have a communication with the
and-
planning staff, and then the
Yes.
final summary of finding the middle ground is to do the front and back setback, right?
Yes,
So even though on the side, you are actually achieving that height that you want, but at the front, you're doing the setback to
yes,
mitigate the height.
yes, yes,
That's what your point is.
yes.
Okay?
Actually, for our building height and the side setback and actually, the all satisfy the zoning requirement. Yeah.
Okay.
I think,
Sorry, can I ask the applicant to just clarify what the purpose of the application is now? Just,
Yes.
Sure.
so it's to alter the existing two-story detached dwelling by constructing a third-story addition and a rear three-story addition?
yes,
Still doing the side entrance and
yes.
ground and third-floor decks? There's no third-floor deck?
No, there's only roof. So you see my picture, which I hatched, which is our addition.
Right.
The empty one is an existing two-story house.
So the new front porch is staying, but you're removing the front basement walkout?
Front walkout?
Yes, you're going to remove that? You're removing variance number 3, which talks about the altering the front of the dwelling to accommodate a second suite.
Okay, I'm going to show you which drawing. Can you see that trees? And this is a the planner suggests us to put a tree over there so that we can build the front stairs.
But through you, Mr. Chair, the applicant has removed the
Does he want a secondary
sure.
suite?
Right.
That
The
doesn't
variance
mean
for
they-
the secondary suite was because the front of the house was going to be altered.
Okay. And
So you're maintaining the front basement walkout then?
yeah, maintain, but because that one is not variance, is allowed.
Okay.
It's not the variance today. We are not apply that variance. This is that is satisfy the zoning bylaw.
And so and then the last part would be the dwelling will be used as one residential dwelling. unit.
Yes, exactly.
No, you've had your chance. Nope. All right, we're talking to Ms. Wang now, we're not talking to you.
But through you, Mr. Chair, since
Would you please be quiet? So, Ms. Deputy Secretary Treasurer, have you got the purpose straight? Because after the word basement, I believe we want to delete any other dwelling unit will occupy the second and third. Oh, yeah.
And there's no second and third decks as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, do I have, there we go. The altered existing two-story detached dwelling, to alter the existing two-story detached dwelling by constructing a third-story addition, a rear three-story addition with a side entrance and rear ground and second floor decks, a new front porch, and a front basement walkout. The dwelling will be occupied as one residential unit.
Yes,
Is that correct?
correct.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
So, did we finish discussing the height? Is there, so it's 9.82 meters. Is that necessary? Is there some way you can cut that down? Because the permitted height is 7.5 meters.
Okay, maybe we can think about change roof type as a slope roof to make it more better visible.
Getting into a
All
lot.
right, so now we get into, we're not here to change the plans or anything, so.
So, but you did say the planning staff is okay with the 9.
Yeah, and the plan.
As long as you do the setback, that's
Yes.
to mitigate the height, right?
Yeah, the planner.
Okay.
Yes, the planner already agree us to offset 1.1, keep this height. Yeah.
Okay.
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 All right. Any further questions?
I have one more question.
Sure.
Do you know, what are the ceiling heights in each of the two stories?
Ceiling height
Yeah.
for the third floor or?
The third floor here, because it almost looks like you have 12-foot ceiling heights, is that
I
correct?
think that is only. I think it's 9.5 meter.
9.5 meter.
Feet.
Feet. Sorry. Oh, you mean the only third floor ceiling height?
Yeah.
And the third floor is what I was wondering too, because it looks like you have,
No, you have it on the last page.
Only 8 feet. Sorry, 8 feet.
8 feet.
Yeah.
Because the elevation one is measuring from the top of parapet, so you look at the section, it's 8 feet.
All right. Any further
All right.
questions? Are you satisfied, Catherine?
I am, thank you.
All right. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so do we have a motion? Go
I
ahead.
have a motion to approve.
Thank you.
Just a minute, just a minute. Will you please be quiet?
So you can actually appeal. It's just how the system works.
Yeah. All right. We've heard from, hello, we've heard from you. We're not going to hear from you any further. I said we've heard from you.
No, you didn't hear from me adequately. You didn't hear from our neighbors adequately. This was not.
Well, your neighbors aren't here.
Submit her letters.
We've had your neighbors' letters. All right, so you didn't see me reading them? We prepare for these meetings. We don't sit here with 45 applications and read through everything that's in the brief. So, listen, I'm not going to discuss this with you any further. We've heard from the applicant, we've heard from you. Okay, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, and you're,
I had some comments to make
All right.
from my neighbors, but
Well-
you didn't let me do that.
we've read your neighbor's letters. All right, thank you very much.
No, you didn't.
All right, you're free to go.
You're happy to have people.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a seconder? All right.
You could have at least had a chance to
Do you want me to call security to throw you out?
call security.
Okay,
That shame would be on you, sir.
yes, all right.
Because I did not
All right, Madam Deputy Secretary, can we get security here, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't believe that's necessary. Would you mind please leaving the room at this point? Thank you. Unless you would like to stay to hear the final motion, then you are welcome to stay for the final motion. Mr. Chair, I'd just like to remind the members today, if they are making a motion on this application, it's a motion as amended.
Yes.
Okay, so here you second the motion?
I second.
All right, all in favor? You have your approval, thank you. As amended.
Thank you so much.
Number 11, do you want to take a break? Okay, we're at 12 o'clock, we can have, oh, we still have quite a few.
Yes. Oops.
2,
Forgot to stop the time.
5, we have 5 more applications. We're going to take a 5-minute break.
Just when we take a break, just so you know, the microphones are still on. So what we will do is we do that, just we put it in camera. Oops. Or just make sure your applications,
Oh, I have to press that first before I do.
no, just, you have to turn your mic.
All right, we're back. We're now dealing with number 11, 154 High Park Avenue. The purpose of this application is to convert the existing rear detached garage into a two-story secondary suite with a garage on the ground floor and a second-story balcony on the east side. We have before us on this application material submitted by the applicant, staff reports from planning and engineering. We have support from number 150 High Park, and we have opposition from High Park Avenue, Quebec Avenue, numerous addresses, and from the Bloor West Village Residents Association and the Swansea Ratepayers Association. Well, you've aroused the ire of half a city.
As I usually do, sir.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members, Ida Evangelista, on behalf of Bonnie and Michael Shoddick. Before we proceed, if I may step forward and provide you with letters of support from many of the surrounding homes.
Okay, I've been handed letters of.
So what we are proposing.
Just
Sorry.
Just hang on.
Yes.
Okay, so we have letters of support from 126 High Park, 140 High Park, 141 High Park, 149 High Park, 151 High Park, 153 High Park, 157 High Park, 159 High Park, 161 High Park, 164 High Park.
And 172.
Where is that?
At the very back. Oh, is it not included in that?
Very back one I have is 164.
Just give me 1 second. Oh.
Okay. Oops. And 172. Thank you. All right.
So, may I proceed?
Yes, please.
We're proposing a secondary suite. Promoting affordable housing is widespread and most certainly needed in urban areas. In this particular situation, we have a multi-generational family that is requesting additional living space to assist both aging parents and a young family. A home that has been in the family for over 30 years and will continue to do so for many more. I am in receipt of the planning report and the neighboring letters, and as you have in front of you, the letters of support from many of the area residents. We are also in agreement to the comments we received from engineering, who, I may add, does support the application, as we meet the criteria. We meet the criteria for emergency services. We have a fire hydrant that is approximately 50 meters from the home, and the required distance is 90 meters. So we are in agreement with what and the conditions that engineering services has put forth. I would also like to add that no trees will be removed nor injured. I will show you. So this is the subject property. And as you can see, the structure is nestled amongst a great deal of forested canopy. So the Shoddicks rather enjoy the canopy of trees that they provide, and perhaps additional trees to provide additional privacy to, for both 154 and 152. Bill 140, Strong Communities Through Affordable Housing Act 2011, amended the Planning Act to encourage affordable housing. The Planning Act changes requires municipalities to include the official plan policies and zoning bylaw provisions to permit secondary units in detached, semi-detached, and townhouses, as well as ancillary buildings, which is what we are proposing to you today. The provisions permit one second unit either in a house or in an ancillary building on the same lot, which at this time, planning is reviewing it. Planning is taking a look at it, and February 25, 2019, as of RHODES Secondary Suites, which was submitted by the Chief Planner and Executive Director, states that they have Official Plan Amendment 418 adopting in July 23, 2018. They are encouraging the creation of secondary units to increase the supply and availability within housing across the city. Now in effect, 418 permits second units with a primary dwelling and a detached, semi-detached, as I mentioned, and it also includes policies to permit secondary units within building ancillary to a semi-detached or detached or townhouse where it will respect and reinforce the neighborhood. In this particular situation, does it respect and reinforce the neighborhood? Absolutely. It's tucked, it's nestled in the very back, it's a large lot, it has parking, it has accessibility for emergency services, it's heavily canopied by all the trees. And what brought the Shoddicks to this point? So they live in a home, and as I mentioned previously, they are aging. They have their mother that's aging. They want their child who has two children, family, to live together, and coming up with the various options on living conditions. Adding an addition, I believe, I respectfully submit, would be much more intrusive to the neighboring properties, as it would create and cast more of a shadowing effect. Whereas this particular structure sits at the rear of the property. It already has many trees around it and will not impede on neighboring properties. The benefits of Bill 140 are to support changing demographics by providing more housing options for extended families or elderly parents, or perhaps a live-in caregiver, which in this particular situation is the Shoddicks. Not to mention supporting local businesses, local labor markets, efficient use of public transit, and the existing stock.
Right, you're close to...
Yes, this area is very close to transit, places of business.
Who's going to live in this unit? Is it
It's
somebody supporting?
the owners, Michael,
The owners are going? All right.
Michael and Bonnie,
All right.
and Bonnie's mom will be living in this unit. So we have, this area consists of eclectic building types. We have new, old, 2, 2.5, 3 stories, high-rise, low-rise, triplexes, fourplexes, along with homes 148, 166, you'll see already have. That's exactly, actually, this is larger than what Bonnie and Michael are proposing. 166 also is larger than what Bonnie and Michael are proposing. So I respectfully submit the secondary suite being proposed will live harmoniously.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Are there people living in these garages?
I have not knocked on their door, but from what I was told of the neighbor at 172, yes. And to the left of 144, yes.
Are they legal non-conforming uses, or were they recently converted?
Well, whether or not they were, I'm not sure if they're legal or not legal or legal non-conforming. I'm not too sure of the particular situation. However, they are there.
All right. All right. So please
So
wrap up.
So I respectfully submit that the secondary suite being proposed will live harmoniously with homes in the neighborhood, just as 148 and 166 High Park does. It meets the 4 tests. It is in keeping with the provincial policy statement and the growth plan. I respectfully submit that this home, this proposed secondary suite, will be compatible and live harmoniously with neighboring homes.
Okay. We'll hear from the neighbors. Do we have a spokesperson?
We are going to have to take your time in three, but we're going to rush it as much as we can.
Pardon?
We have 3 speakers.
3 speakers?
Yes.
Okay, you got 3 minutes each.
So we have 2 neighbors. But we'll do our best. We'll do our best.
Are you abutting neighbors?
Yes.
Okay.
And the other abutting neighbors in Vancouver, so couldn't make it today. Would it be helpful to provide you with pictures? I have printouts, if that's helpful.
Yes? Put them on the over.
Those ones you can each have a-
Okay, bring it up.
Whichever you prefer. So good morning, committee members. My name is Stephen Simony. I reside at 152 High Park Avenue with my wife and 2 children. Our home is adjacent and to the south of the applicant. We support the concept of intergenerational living like the Shuttocks are proposing. However, the proposal's 8 variances each collectively and do not meet the 4 tests for the minor variances.
Right, so can I ask you, do you have a second unit on your, a second dwelling unit on your property?
No, I do not. The property to the south does not, wrote a letter at 148 High Park, wrote a letter indicating, I think, that they don't have any sanitary facilities or cooking facilities in there.
It's also an historic code.
Just a minute. Okay, so there's nobody living, so far as you know, in any secondary unit, any second building on a...
I can confirm for the buildings to the south of me. I don't know to the north.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
So the bylaws, the 8 bylaws are not minor. The bylaw states that ancillary buildings may not be used for living accommodations, must not contain food, preparation, or sanitary facilities. This proposal contains exactly these. Furthermore, the bylaws state 1 residential building per lot. The proposal has 2 and is fundamentally different than what is allowed. Maximum height of 4 meters. The proposal is 6.9 meters, 172% greater. Has a maximum of 1 story as the bylaw. It has 2, 100% greater. A maximum permitted floor area of 60 meters squared. The proposal is 190 meters squared, which is more than 3 times greater. In addition, I'm not able to determine if the 190 meters includes the roughly 885 square feet that for now is designated as parking use. In reference to the deck, it has to be, if it's more than 1.2 meters above ground, I don't believe that it is permitted. The entire 37-foot wide deck spans the entire lot and is 2.57 meters above the ground, more than twice the allowable height. The secondary suite is permitted only within the primary dwelling. The proposal puts a secondary within an ancillary structure. Moreover, it's noted in my letter of objection dated September the 5th, I highlight the sale listing when the owners listed their property for sale. This listing shows a secondary suite within the existing structure, plus it also indicates a tenant who is willing to stay. The proposal requests significant exemptions that are not minor. While I have not reviewed the laneway suites policy, I would point out that this is not located on a laneway, and it is not located in the designated area of the laneway suites. The general intent and the purpose of the official plan is not maintained.
You're getting close to your 3 minutes.
Okay. You know, this represents a series of creep, each time asking the committee for more. They were allowed 3 vehicles. They asked for 4. At least 4 is what they got. Not 4, at least 4. The intent and the purpose of the zoning bylaws are not maintained. The proposal would set a precedent for the area that changes the intent and purpose of the bylaws.
Okay, please wrap up.
If the bylaws had been intended for residential uses in ancillary structures, it would have done so through a formal bylaw amendment similar to laneway suites.
Right.
The actual proposed structure, gross square footage, including the garage, is 2,055 square feet. If you include the, that's bigger than the actual house that's the existing, 1,661 square feet. So, you know, in future, this could easily be converted into some other use. There's a reference to a washroom on the ground floor that could be used for Airbnb, where you're now bringing the street front to the back of the properties.
All right, thank you very much.
We will rush through this. See if this works now. My name is Earl Steckler, and I live at 144 High Park Avenue with my wife and 2 kids. As Stefan already outlined, the 8 variances sort individually or judged as a whole.
We don't want you to repeat what the previous...
I will. They are not minor. As far as the 2 coach houses that was referenced, I would like to add that my neighbor's coach house at 148 is an historic coach house that when they bought their house, the city did not allow them to tear it down. It was in bad need of renovations. And that was the only reason why the city allowed them to do the renovations they did. The one at one...
Is there anybody living in there?
No, not to my knowledge. And the one at the Heinzmann house is actually listed on the City of Toronto historic heritage list. I don't know the history behind the coach house, but I know that...
Anybody living there?
The Heinzmann, yes, I believe so. I don't know the story behind it. But it's an historic house, so clearly there's been something there for grandfather for many, many years. You've received many letters of opposition here, and I assume you will post the ones eventually for us, both from us and the ratepayers associations in the neighborhood. But more so, city planning is against this. Approving this would set a very dangerous precedent, and notwithstanding the enormous size of the structure, preempt the study of the secondary garden suite that Toronto City Council has asked planning for. We're not asking you to approve this application. We are asking you not to approve this application as it's premature, and it should only be considered if and when garden suites are approved. Our neighborhood is defined as a neighborhood. You know what that means. But development of neighborhoods should be all in keeping with the existing prevailing lot patterns and structures to, among other things, consider privacy, security, greenery, and the good not only for the land of the owner, but for the community as a whole. This proposal does not in any way conform with the letter or intent of the official plan. I'm concerned that the city have not yet presented the study of garden suites. A study would address issues such as schools, traffic, parking, greenery, bird life, noise, privacy, and other important areas. Ultimately, following the study, City Council would decide if garden suites would be allowed, which is far from certain. Allowing this...
You're running up to your 3 minutes.
I just want to say, this is not a laneway house, and I'm not going to speak about laneway housing. No. But had it been a laneway house on a laneway, it would not have been allowed. There are many variances that this proposed structure has that are completely offside of what would be even spoken about when it comes to laneway housing. I want to spend 2 seconds on greenery, and I want to illustrate where we live. And this is awful. You don't see this very well. Do you mind if I approach?
No.
I'll do this very quickly. We live in a very diverse neighborhood, which has a mix of rental apartments, single-family homes, rental buildings, and houses with a rental apartment in them. We're south, this is north. The subject property is up here. The gray spots you see here are parking areas behind rental buildings. What the rental buildings have in common and the subject property is that you see gray because they built in the backyard or they constructed parking areas. Landlords do not want greenery. So for every single application that you, ladies and gentlemen, will approve, even if there is no trees on the site right now, you will forever take away the possibility that there will be greenery. And over time, the greenery and the trees will be reduced and removed. It's the real concerns for the neighbors. The city has not studied this. And we feel strongly that should this be approved, there will be creepage and there will be more of these to follow.
All right.
I will leave it like that, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. We have another speaker.
My name is Veronica Wynne, and I'm the president of the Swansea Area Ratepayers Association. I come here to bring both the neighbourhood perspective, but also a citywide perspective on this issue, because as a party,
This property is not within your...
it's north of Bloor, and we're south of Bloor, but anything that is approved here is a concern for us because it sets a precedent citywide.
All right, go ahead.
So as a party, we actually are a party to the appeal on the 569 2013 zoning bylaw, and so we're almost like a watchdog of anything that comes around in the neighbourhood that contravenes or tries to preempt anything that will be advanced as a zoning bylaw within, because of that appeal, and we're pretty vigilant. So this actually doesn't meet. We are aware that the city it has been presented as an idea, but it is actually very far from becoming a reality, because we are always advised, and there's a legal obligation to do consultation and things like that, which there's not even a whiff of news that this is on the cards at the moment. That is in process. So. There was also reference to secondary suites, and secondary suites, as we know, this is not a secondary suite. It is an additional residence or an additional building, which in normal circumstances it would be like a severance issue, but it's not. They're presented as a secondary suite, and secondary suites were only approved within the household or as an extension to the building. So this is in no way a secondary suite and cannot be defined as such, and it would not be approved as such. We are just recovering from having laneways being put on laneways being given approval, and that caused all sorts of, as you have mentioned in a previous application, very specific guidelines that would be applied, as would be the future we anticipate.
Coming up against your 3 minutes.
Okay, so I just want to reference the engineers thing. This has monumental impact, and it is, in our perspective, it is egregious because it attacks the safety and security. It also addresses the density issues, loss of green space, drainage issues, and especially when it's an engineers for safety and security, that's huge in our terms. So this cannot be approved because it certainly doesn't exist in planning, and also it is in contravention of lots of safety and security issues for the neighbourhood, and sets a precedent. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Evangelista?
So apart from reading all the letters and hearing what they've had to say about this particular application, the one thing that we have to do is we actually have to somewhat think outside the box, for lack of better words. We took the liberty, and Bonnie took...
Can we think outside the box when this is not a permitted use? I know engineering said here are the 3 conditions, and those are the conditions that they apply to laneway suites. That doesn't mean they're going to apply to, first of all, if there is a bylaw that says you can have a second unit on the property, doesn't mean they're going to have the same criteria.
Right, so how this was being viewed was, let's say, as a garden suite. That's how this application was viewed, as a garden suite.
Yeah.
And in the staff report, so she even mentions, the planner even mentions that OPA 418 sets out the intent to permit garden suites in certain circumstances. Now,
But
in this particular...
that's an intent, it's not.
Right, but in this particular circumstance, so because this garden suite was viewed as that, let's look at it as a garden suite. When Engineering and Construction Services reviewed the application, they reviewed it as a garden suite in an ancillary, a secondary suite in an ancillary structure, and
This may
implemented
be-
all the criteria that they required regarding safety, EMS, traffic.
Oh, it may very well be that this is the perfect example of what one would want for a garden suite and would meet all the criteria that have yet to be determined. But they have yet to be determined, and this is not permitted. Maybe in 6 months, maybe in 2 years, it will be permitted, but right now, it's not permitted.
But with respect, sir, because this is being viewed as a whole, and the laneway suites has been introduced, at the same time, they are viewing the garden suite. So they already have ideas and the direction that they will be taking, which they are going to be reporting back in the fourth quarter. We are not changing anything to the green space. There are no safety and security issues. We have a fire hydrant close by. Actually, this is a much better situation and proposal than a laneway suite, because if we think about it, when you have a home that's facing a laneway, the fire hydrant is on the street. So in this particular situation, this does satisfy that aspect and is a much safer situation. Are we changing the green space? Not at all. We'll be adding to it. It's mere speculation, Airbnb, it's unfortunately, but we cannot paint everybody with the same brush, okay? This is going to be a multi-generational home. We have to recognize that that's the direction that we are taking today. And that is why I made the comment in opening, because the direction today is we're short in housing, we're getting on in age, we need help. I have my 2 kids still living at home with me. So, this is just the direction that life is going and life is being thrown at us. So, with respect, I respectfully submit that this application, as it was viewed with the intent of garden suites, because planning is already reviewing that option. They're already looking at it, so they already know what direction they're taking. They have that provincial policy statement. Changes to the Planning Act have occurred. Our growth studies in place. So with all these different elements, we have to recognize the direction that we're moving forward.
All right, you're coming up against your time.
With that, I respectfully submit. Yes.
You understand that the OP is coming from the province, and we are dealing with municipal laws.
Right.
That's the facts we have to look at.
Mm-hmm.
We are not fortune tellers. We cannot see how OP will be interpreted into bylaws. From that point, it's really hard. I mean, I've been hearing what you said, but it's really. I just want to give you another chance to convince us that this is a minor application.
Mm-hmm.
The existing bylaws.
Right.
Rather than speculating how the OP is going to be when it brings down to the city level, which, I don't think there's any, even a public consultation or secondary plan is being produced. So can you just base on that level and give us one last chance to say why this is?
Well, this is a minor application because as I previously showed, we are not, we are asking for a minor height variance. We're not encroaching in neighboring properties. There is an area where there is no shadowing. Many of the variances that we have all relate to the ancillary garden suite.
Based on what you said, then that means I can take out number 2. You can build, but you can't live. Is that okay with you?
I'm sorry?
I'm just responding to what you said.
Right.
You're talking about the footprint, the size, the greenery. So let's say you can build this building.
Right.
But not allowing having people to live in it.
Okay?
Assuming with what you just said, right? So I think the key right here is not just about the greenery and the footprint, but whether the fact that should this be a residential space?
Well, so,
And is that, how would you say that this is a minor?
well, it is the way, the interpretation for the actual size, the interpretation of zoning, they've included both second floor and first floor. However, we have only 99.79,
But if you look at item number 2, number 3,
right,
we have 2 stories, you know,
for living accommodation. That speaks to,
may not be food preparation, sanitary facilities. So, I mean, with just what you have explained, it looks like 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is minor, but number 2, 3 are not minor. And I just want you to focus on that.
but that goes to speaking about being used as a living accommodation, correct? So as far as I'm concerned, the mass, the height will not create any significant issues for the abutting properties, being a 2-story ancillary building.
Mr. Cheng is asking you about living accommodations, food preparation, sanitary facilities, not the other issues. This, as I said, this
Right.
would be the perfect property for a second dwelling unit on the property, but it's not allowed at this point. So that, he's saying, Mr. Cheng is saying, that is not a minor variance.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I do understand what you're proposing here, and it speaks to the application as a whole, right? It speaks to the application as a whole.
All right, thank you very much.
If
And-
I have to look at all items as a whole, then I would have to put a motion to reject, disapprove.
Yeah.
Or
After-
I can approve 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 3, but that's not what you want, right? So
You can approve 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Just,
Well,
Okay.
I can,
Yeah, can you just correct me?
all right, so, I mean, it's all or nothing in this case. So, Mr. Cheng, your motion?
Motion is to reject the whole application and to put that as a whole.
Do we have a seconder? We have a seconder. All in favor? Okay. Mr. Z. Ms. Zehart. Okay. The application's been refused.
From my understanding, the additional letters that was submitted now, supposedly, will they be posted on the Broadview website?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Move on, application number 14, 319 Warren Road. Can I ask you to leave quietly so we can get on with the other applications? Thank you. The purpose of this application is to construct a new 2-story detached dwelling with an integral garage and rear first and second story decks. We have before us on this application material submitted by the applicant, a report from Urban Forestry, 10 form letters in support, and opposition from 321 Warren Road. Your name, sir?
My name's Jim Pfeffer with Mako Architects. I'm here on behalf of the owners, Avi and Barbara Barkin.
Yes.
So if I can dive right in. So at the outset of this process, we did some very significant outreach to all of the neighborhood, and we have letters of support from the 2 properties immediately behind this property, the 1 property to the south, and we have a letter of support from 1 property directly across the street and 6 other properties along Warren Road. We also discussed this project with community planning, and community planning has no concerns with this proposal. And we did also discuss the project quite extensively with the neighbors at 321 Warren Road who are here, and we'll have plenty of time to get into that. So at the outset, I'd just like to talk about this site plan that you have before you and the issues of the front yard setback, which is essentially a very minor variance because, as you can see, the front of the house is basically in line with the neighboring houses as the bylaw intends. And then there's the issue of basically the length and the depth. And the depth, of course, the bylaw speaks to the point in which you can have the back of your house as of right. And the single-story portion of the house sticks 2 feet 7 3/4 inches beyond that as of right allowable back of the house, and the second story only sticks basically 8 inches beyond that back of the house as it's allowed as of right. And you can see the side of the house facing the north is basically 17.63 meters wide. The main body of the side of the house on the other side is 17.37 meters wide. And then, of course, we have this bump out, which is the thing that creates the length variance. But that's set back an additional 2 feet from that north side property line. So there are some other variances. There's a variance for the driveway width, and we told city planning, and I'm telling you that if you choose to give us a condition that that be built of permeable paving, we'd be happy to accept that. There's a variance which is very minor in size for a second floor balcony. If you want us to put a translucent privacy screen on the side of that, we would be happy to accept that as a condition. And you can see, looking at page 2 here, where we've got this streetscape, we've gone to great pains to make a house which is going to be in keeping with the character of this street and the character of this neighborhood. It's a modern house, but you can see in massing and in scale, we have the garage at the ground level. We don't have 2 stories stacked above the garage, as you see in a lot of modern houses. We've really got a 2-story house which very much maintains the character of the street and the character of the neighborhood and the built physical form which the official plan and ourselves as architects and the clients, want to protect. So if you take a look at the 3rd page, it just speaks to some of the other variances that this committee has granted. We are looking for an FSI variance, but it's very much in keeping with any number of other variances in this immediate area. The length variance we're asking for, also in keeping with other variances granted by this committee, as well as you can see there's front yard setbacks, but no one's raised an issue with that. And then I'm showing some of the other buildings in this neighborhood, both new construction and also existing houses which have had significant additions put on in the rear. Often more, I think, impactful than what we're proposing. I think on, say, the 2nd page of photos, you can see that 32 Elmsthorpe, a very long modern house, or on Chaplin Crescent with lots of exactly the same size, larger modern houses, 8 Tarleton on the 1st page in the upper right-hand corner. And then, and we can speak to this more when we speak with the neighbors, but we did it on the, you can see there is a shadow study that we've done. And you can see we modeled the as-of-right house, and we modeled our house. And you can see...
You're running up against your time.
Yeah, you can see that as of right, you could build a house with significantly greater shadow impact than what we're proposing. And you can also see, and we'll speak to this more later, in terms of the views from the neighbor's house, as of right, you could build a house which would be more impactful of their views as well. So we'll speak to more of that further, but I think that's a good start for our presentation. I guess I'd like to emphasize that we've taken great care to make a house that will fit with the character of the neighborhood, and there is no impact of the variances that we are asking for which exceed what would be the impact of an as-of-right construction. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Neighbor, are you both going to speak or just one? Okay.
My name is Linda Stoller, and we live at 321 Warren Road. My request to the committee is very simple. I have no objection to the house that they are building, but the length, the depth of the house, this is a very large 3,300 square foot house on a small city lot, and their house is going to go halfway into their backyard, which is going to impact the light and the sun that is coming into my house. You can see the picture where the edge of their house is going to be. And I am going to be without sunlight during the winter season, which I rely on to keep my house warm and for my plants in the back. I'm asking that they stick to what the zoning bylaw is, which is a permitted length of 17 meters. They are requesting that the variance be 20.42 meters. I'm just requesting that they make the house not as long to intrude and be intrusive into the view and the height and the light that's going to come into our home.
Okay, so, but have you seen these?
I have.
minute-
I
by-
have.
By the applicant, and did you see I think it's the last page, the difference between as of right, because they can do 17 meters. So I'm not sure, yeah. So have you seen the shadow study? Do you understand the shadow?
I don't understand. All I can tell you is that I'm going to be in shadow.
So,
They're going to have the glorious sunlight every day. I'm going to be in the shadow of their home.
You're on the north side?
Yes.
right. This is their house?
Yeah. Just using this drawing from the applicant as a reference, this is your house, right?
Yes.
And that's approximate depth of your house as well.
Yes.
So,
Because by looking at that plan, it looks like they're not sticking down that hole from yours.
But they are. You can see where the edge of their house is going to end compared to where our house ends.
are you complaining about,
The length of their house.
yeah, but inside, you complain about the light that you're going to get inside? You're not talking about your backyard at this point?
No, I'm talking about the light that's going to come directly into the back of my house.
Okay.
Yes.
So, I take it that this,
I just want to double check that if you have looked at the diagram at the lower right corner. So the applicant showed the red line, which is the existing, right? And then it seems like you're only applying for that 2 foot existing.
Yeah, I don't understand all of that. That's why I had this picture put up, because that's where their house is going to be. There's going to be 2 stories.
And you have talked to him
Yeah,
before the hearing.
it's a very large, honestly, the lots are not big.
okay. So, how far from, well, I think we'll ask Mr. Pfeffer. How far from your property is this? Pardon?
From what I understand, if it was for the permitted length would be at where the garage begins.
Oh, I'm
That's where the
talking
house
about
would
how
end.
far- I'm talking about how far from your property the new house would be.
Do you have that information?
All right, okay, thank you, we'll ask Mr. Pfeffer. Okay. Just hang on, you'll get your chance. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? All right, Mr. Pfeffer?
So to answer your question, the house is 3 feet from the property line, which is the required side yard setback. And then that little part that sticks out at the end is 5 feet from the property line. So that's 2 feet further from the property line.
How
than
far from your neighbor's house?
From the neighbor's house?
How far are they from their property line?
They're half a meter from the property line. But, and if you take a look at the shadow study, I think we can get partly to the heart of this matter, is that when they did the addition to that house, they constructed a house that has these beautiful rear windows that look out.
So you're talking about the neighbors when they...
I'm talking about it at 321, Linda and Martin here, who we have been in touch with extensively. Like all those Photoshop images that you saw, we shared those with them very early in this process. And we all even volunteered to flip the house the other way so that that extension would be further from their house. But the heart of the matter is they've got those windows that look not into their backyard, but they look diagonally across the backyard of the property at 319 Warren Road. And you can see that in the footprint of their house. It's illustrated in the shadow study. So the fact is their yard has those big windows, which I'm sure are very nice, and they look out over our backyard, and they get light. And that light is going to be impacted by this house, but it's not going to be impacted any more than what could be the impact of an as-of-right construction. And we stick further back, but because that back part is actually set further away from their property line, the resulting sort of view, the sight line to their rear room there is going to be exactly the same. And, yeah, and I think... I mean, you can see it on the site plan there. I mean, it's a much shorter original house to the neighborhood. But I think this is very much in keeping with existing houses in the neighborhood that have had rear additions or new dwellings which are, built to a greater length. And you look at that list of variances on the third page, and you can see that there's a number well into the 20s of depth and length that's been constructed.
If I may just ask you a quick question, just looking at the sight lines that you've drawn, are those sight lines currently, do they have a view of the garage?
Yeah, if you take a look, and you can actually, if you take a look at the photo montage on that page, you can see we've actually taken out the garage and we've put trees there. But actually, I have the photo from the existing house, and I think it was in the submission that Linda and Martin made, and I've got it right here. There's that existing view from their room. So you can see our house, as an as-of-right house will come up essentially to that second line of the sliding door. But on the other hand, that garage is going to be gone. And they're going to have a view over what that garage is now. And we've also said that we'd be happy to put whatever kind of planting they want. We're certainly happy to talk about any kind of reconstructed fence. And you can also see the impact on the topography here and the fact that their property, that fence, which is not a very high fence, is already basically above the garage door. So there's a significant step down to the driveway, which actually reduces the impact of this house, which is well below the allowable height. 11 meters is allowed. We're asking for, or the house is 8.67 meters high, so significantly lower house than what could be constructed as of right, which I think, looking at this house as a house that's been designed to fit in with the character of the neighborhood, collectively results in these variances, but absolutely it's a house that's proper for the neighborhood, and it doesn't impact greater than what could be done, bulking out these other provisions of the bylaw.
And just, not that I'm trying to scale your drawing, but even if you do 17 meters, you are still blocking the window.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that would be somewhere
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, do we, no further questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll have a motion to approve.
Just a minute, there's a forestry, urban
Oh, sorry,
forestry,
yes.
condition number 1. That's
Yes,
okay?
That's okay, yeah, with the condition of the forestry. we
You
propose-
second the motion? All right, all in favor? Have your approval, sir, thank you. Okay, that was, here we are, number 14. Now we go to number 18, 271 Rosedale Heights. Purpose of this application is to construct a new 2.5-story, single-family detached dwelling with a basement, walkout, and rear decks on the first and second floors. And we have, with this application, material submitted by the applicant, email correspondence from planning, and, pardon? Rosedale Heights. We're at 18.
We miss,
Yeah, okay, and senior, and also correspondence from the senior planner, strategic initiatives, staff reports from ravine and, from urban forestry, ravine and natural feature protection, from tree protection and plan review, urban forestry, and from the Toronto Region Conservation Authority. We have a letter from the councillor, Michael Layton, and we have opposition from Houses on Inglewood, Moore Park Residents Association, Rosedale Heights. That's it. Okay. All right, your name, please?
My name is Michelle Charco. I'm a land use planner from Goldberg Group. I'm here on behalf of the applicant.
Right.
And so what I have with me today for the committee members is some visual materials and some revised architectural plans along with a revised agenda, because we've made changes to the plans to address comments from the Residents Association, Moore Park Residents Association, and some of the neighbors. So we've actually reduced the scope of 2 of our variances. So in particular,
Have they been filed with the planning?
they have not, no. We made the changes last night. But the building itself is generally the same. What has happened, this is a very unique ravine lot, if I may just. What we've done is just,
Yeah, have the neighbors, have you given this material to the neighbors?
yes, this morning, yes.
Oh, they only did it last night.
We are very uncomfortable with this. There's a lot of concern, as you can see from the letters. We received it at 9:30, 10 o'clock this morning. Obviously, we can't possibly.
So did you, are you asking for a deferral?
We're definitely asking for it.
How do you want to proceed? Do you want these, well, you've made changes to try and accommodate
Yes.
sections, right?
Yes, so I can hand out the package to show the changes, because I'd say.
One more question, would that change any variances with the new drawings?
Yes, 2 of the variances have changed. They've been reduced, and I have a red line version here to mark it up. Basically, the FSI has been reduced by 15%, and the building length has been reduced.
I think we cannot, yeah. So are you going to defer it, or you want?
No, we would like to move forward.
You want to move forward? With that
Yes.
proposal?
But you don't want to proceed with the original proposal, you want to proceed with the revised proposal.
Just going to check with
Is
my
that correct?
applicant. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so let us hear from the neighbor who's objecting to proceeding this morning, so we'll deal with the referral at this point.
First.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, okay. So we're only dealing with the issue of deferral.
Of deferral, right. Did you want my card? Great. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Kevin Hurlbert. I'm a neighbor of the subject property, 3 doors to the west. I've spoken with, pardon me? My address is 355 Inglewood.
Yes.
And I'm here on behalf of a number of my neighbors, all of whom live within the block, many of whom are traveling today. In respect of the deferral, we're very happy to have a constructive conversation with the applicant and have had previous discussions with the applicant. We're encouraged by the opportunity for movement on the application. However, so many members of the neighborhood have been concerned. We haven't had an opportunity to review the revisions. The revisions, while they are less than what was applied for, are still significant, and we, in our view, do not believe they still meet the test of a minor variance. The concerns are undressed in respect of setback and massing on the street.
We don't want to talk about the merit.
Right.
We just want to talk about the deferral. So you don't feel that you've gotten, that you've had time to consider the...
No, we've certainly not. We've only had a moment to meet with the applicant this morning, and certainly none of my neighbors have had the benefit of seeing the revised proposal. And so really, I have no way of knowing whether or not they would respond favorably or not.
Okay. All right. So thank you. Do you have anything further to add?
If I may just support this. Yes. My name is Ellen Greenwood. I represent Moore Park Residents Association. We are very concerned about this application. We feel that it does require more consideration. I would like to point out that...
As a result of the changes or because it requires more consideration?
Both. I mean, because I know we're not supposed to get into it, but the changes are still significant. And with all the extensive concerns represented by the community, we feel that we really need to go back to them and try and come up with a solution. I would also like to point out that when we did meet with the applicant originally about a month ago, we raised some of those concerns and since then have made several efforts to try and talk to them to see if there was a resolution. And I understand it took them some time to think about it, but we were literally given the revised plans this morning.
So in any event, you have to go back to your association.
We feel that's the appropriate thing if the committee agrees.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So, yeah. You want to speak to the issue of deferral? Do you have anything more to add?
So the applicant has had email correspondence recently with the Residents Association and has reviewed the letters that were provided from the adjacent neighbors. The Residents Association has generally been saying that they would be willing to accept an FSI upwards of 0.80. The original proposal was for 1.01. There were no comments from planning staff with respect to that proposed FSI, and the TRCA provided their stated in their comments that they did not have any concerns with the minor variances. But out of an abundance of good faith, the applicant has reduced the FSI to 0.85, which is only 5% more.
All right. So
than...
We don't want to discuss the merits, so...
What I'm saying in short is basically that there's only a 5% discrepancy between what the Residents Association is saying that they would be comfortable with and with what the applicant has revised. And as we heard from the resident, Kevin, is that he still feels that even with these revisions, even though that we're within 5% of the FSI, that the Residents Association is seeking that is still not deemed minor in his opinion. I'm just not sure what a deferral would really accomplish in this instance, seeing as how the proposed building, the massing is generally still the same, and as I've pointed out here, what we've done, the purple shows the existing building.
All right.
And the red is
yeah. So I think you understand that, you know, when you make changes at the last minute and you have someone representing a ratepayers association, someone representing other neighbors who couldn't be here for whatever reason, that puts them in a difficult spot where they don't have authority to deal with it, no matter
I 100% understand.
How far or how close you are together. They still don't have authority to deal with it.
I 100% understand. However, what we've done is drastically reduce the proposal in a way that I think is very sensitive to some of the comments that were received. And unfortunately, this happens frequently with Committee of Adjustment hearings at the last minute. But we're not adding any more variances, and we are trying to reduce in a way to show good faith with the neighbors and the Residents Association. Because if we defer, then we won't be back at the committee. My understanding would be minimum 3 months.
Right.
And I'm not sure how much will be resolved with respect to a 5% discrepancy over FSI.
Well, okay. So,
The question is more about the right to know the information that you're presenting today for those who could not come or were not aware of. So I would bring in a motion to accept the deferral or to approve the deferral.
your motion?
Yes, that's my
All right.
motion.
Do I have a seconder? All right. All in favor of deferral? I have a deferral. Thank you. On 205 Witchwood Avenue. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing 1.5-story detached dwelling into a 3-story detached dwelling by constructing front and rear ground floor additions with a complete 2-story addition above, a rear basement walkout and deck, a rear 3rd-story balcony, and a rear detached garage. We have before us material submitted by the applicant. We have urban forestry report, and we have opposition from properties on Kenwood and Witchwood. Your name, sir?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of committee. My name is TJ Sakura. I am a registered professional planner and principal of Design Plan Services, here to present information to you on the application at number 205 Witchwood.
Where's the opposition?
They're right here.
All right, come forward, please.
Sir, we've had a what I consider to be a fairly good discussion outside prior to me standing up here. I'm going to ask this committee to defer the application so that I can organize a separate meeting with the residents on-site or in the neighborhood to discuss possible revisions that may address their concerns. It seems like there is some support for that request and there is some opposition to that request. I sincerely believe there is merit in having further discussions with the residents. Based on the concerns they raised to me, I think this is solvable, and I would respectfully request we be deferred.
All right, thank you. Do we have somebody from the opposition, from the neighbors, to speak to the issue of deferral? Are you the only spokesperson, please? Pardon? To the
I am
issue
not.
of deferral.
Yes, I know. I'm Alan Silverman. I'm at 207 Witchwood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we just address the issue
Yes,
of deferral.
yes. So we have very late to the process begun to talk to the applicant. Therefore, we are in favor of the deferral.
All right, thank you. Sure.
Because there has been no real consultation up till 2 days ago.
Okay. So did you, Mr. Silverman, do you see some flexibility in the applicant's position? So would a deferral, in your opinion?
There has been some verbal flexibility, but we still need to see whether it's for real. At the original conversation, there was no flexibility. Their representative this morning had a bit different terminology than the owner 3 days ago.
Thank you. All right, do we, you,
Good afternoon. I'm Melinda Benjamin. I'm from 203 Witchwood. I'm opposed to the deferral. I don't believe that the applicant, who is a non-resident at 205 Witchwood, after buying the property in the spring of 2018, is acting in good faith. We had lots of opportunity. We reached out for him to contact us and make to schedule meetings, and we were not able to. And based on discussions with my neighbors, we got different information at different times, and I don't believe that he's willing to, or the applicant will be able to come to terms with our conditions.
All right, there's sometimes when it's a long way away, you take a firm position when you're faced with the news, that things change. So, and that's what Mr. Silverman said as well, the position has changed from the initial conversation.
I haven't spoken to the applicant. He's spoken.
But were you a party to the conversation going on this morning?
Yes, I was.
Okay, so did there seem to be more flexibility than previously?
Well, the person who's representing the applicant, he didn't seem to have the authority to make any decisions.
Oh, I understand that, but do you think he was looking at it a little more flexibly than the owner was?
There is some flexibility that addresses the cosmetic issues that we were looking at, but for the general substantial issues, I don't see any movement.
When was the last time reaching out again?
Unfortunately, this is not, the last time Joel, the applicant, reached out to me was on Tuesday night, and it was a written note.
Last night?
Today is.
Today's Wednesday.
No, it was Monday night, the 9th, September 9th. And my son came home late that evening, and there was a note in our mailbox, and it basically said that the meeting today was deferred. I sent a copy of the note that Joel left in my mailbox to the person who is in charge of the file. Joel left a note in my mailbox saying the meeting was deferred and I did not need to be here today, and that he will schedule meetings. Pardon?
You have that note with you?
I sent it to Jacob Corbeil.
Oh.
Jason?
Yeah, I sent a copy
Okay.
to it.
All right.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
That's the last time I heard from him.
Thank you. Applicant, please come forward.
Oops.
Oh, just a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of very minor comments. The owner and architect did apparently meet with the residents 3 days ago, and I think it's exactly as you described. They had said, this is the proposal we're putting forward, and it's proceeding on Wednesday. When I became aware of the specific concerns and comments that were raised by the neighbors, my first suggestion to the applicant was, let's defer this application to sit down with those residents and have a fulsome discussion with them. He agreed to that. That indicates to me that he is willing to consider revisions to his application, and he is willing to consider revisions to the application to try and address their concerns.
You're a planner?
I am a planner, yes.
So how long have you been involved in this matter?
I was not involved in the original proposal, but we filed this application with the committee, my office. We only learned of the neighbors' specific concerns a few days ago.
Okay. All right. So, does anybody have any questions?
So from the moment you were scheduled to the date, you have, what, 2 months? Did you reach out to the neighbors during that time?
That was a discussion between myself and my client. They were going to reach out to the neighbors. I do not know when they did or when they didn't. I know they did recently. I do not know if they attempted in the past. It was something I suggested at the beginning of our engagement. However, I can't force my clients to speak to their
You're
neighbors.
the one who placed that note that they don't have to be here today because it is deferred?
So I saw the note, and I think it was a mix-up of terminology. I advised my client to tell the neighbors we were requesting a deferral today. The note that went out said this application has been deferred. Obviously, that is not the case. When I saw this note that went out from my client yesterday, I advised them to notify the neighbors that they're more than welcome to attend today's hearing, but we will be requesting a deferral to meet with them. And in my advice to my client, I said, when there is an opportunity to meet with neighbors and resolve concerns, in my experience, the committee is typically amenable to that type of deferral. If I was standing up here saying there's no chance of any revisions, then I can understand that the committee would not defer this. But give us the chance to have those discussions with the neighbors. They seemed very reasonable. They seemed like their concerns are something that we can solve.
What about your client?
I'm going to tell him exactly that. He's actually watching on YouTube right now. He was supposed to be here, but he is homesick. So I advised him to watch.
All right, thank you. All right, do we have a motion with respect to deferral?
I move that we defer.
All right, do we have a seconder for a deferral motion? Seconder, all in favor? You have your deferral, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of committee.
Yes, yes. The usual terms. Number 21, 74 Rose Park Drive. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear two-story addition with a ground floor deck, a two-story addition on the west side, and a new rear detached garage. Before us, we have material submitted by the applicant, a report from Urban Forestry, one form letter in support, interest and concern from 64 and 70 Rose Park, and opposition from 64, 60, and 37 Rose Park and 110 Clifton Road. Your name, sir?
My name is...
Is the opposition here?
No, they have left and asked me to, will be watching on YouTube and asked me to report that they felt like we'd resolved their concerns as well as possible.
Okay, so they're no longer in opposition?
I don't think I can speak on that to them. They had I'll just tell you they had very strong feelings about the tree, but that's a by right issue.
Okay, but they're not here opposing it anymore?
They are not.
All right, thank you. Your name, please?
My name is Paul Raff. I'm from Paul Raff Studio Architects. I represent the owners.
So their concern was about a tree?
Yes, and I believe that the any concerns that you've seen expressed in the file are regarding the tree.
So is this the $65,000 oak tree?
I don't think I'm qualified to speak to its monetary value, but it is a mature
That was
tree.
in a report. Worth, I don't know, so I was just going to ask you.
200-year-old?
Yeah, 200-year-old oak tree.
It's a mature tree, that's what I know.
Okay. All right. So do we need a presentation or do we have any questions?
I have a question. How was it resolved with the oak tree? Sorry.
I think that if you don't mind looking at the diagram we've put up in blue, we put the by right footprint. So I believe that the owner understands that it's not, the variances don't relate to the tree in as much as a by right addition affects the tree anyway, and Urban Forestry has voiced that their acceptance of this, of course, pending tree-related permit processes prior to the application for a building permit.
So the tree is going to be removed?
It will be, subject to Urban Forestry's approval at the permit stage.
Okay. I assume they're going to, forestry would impose conditions, et cetera.
Oh, yeah, a planting plan and so on, yes.
Yeah. Any further questions?
I just needed to understand, you're going to remove a tree, I don't know, whatever age it is, but it's a mature tree.
Yes.
By replacing it with, presumably, I think forestry, they've got a 3-to-1 ratio, so you'll have three trees replaced with one.
Yes.
Let's assume that the 200 years is a little of an exaggeration, I don't know. But
it is a mature tree.
Cut it down by 50%. It's a 100-year-old tree.
Yes.
But removing that tree means that whatever you plant is going to take maybe 70, 80 years to reach the existing tree. The existing...
To reach its age, perhaps not its size, but its age.
Yeah. Is there no other way around the...
We did study options as to how to configure the house. The answer is no. This has to do with the location of the entrance, which already exists at the side of the house. The one-story portion of the addition at the side of the house allows the front door to indeed face the street, for the door to be findable and it to be navigable by a future wheelchair ramp. This shows that front of the house condition. No, the other side is a shared mutual driveway with a right-of-way. Unfortunately, there's nowhere else to go. We can't go out the front. The other mature trees on the site, of course, will be preserved with a tree protection plan, and there will be a replacement plan.
You have the canopy size?
I don't know the canopy size offhand.
Because it looks like to me, if that's an old tree, and that even if this tree is going to be preserved, that tree protection zone is going to cover half of the site. So even if we keep it, we won't be able to build anything.
Yeah.
So if the approval from the forestry, then we just have to trust that.
We have a graphic, a scale graphic of the canopy size. So you're correct, it's not just the location of the trunk, it's the location of the canopy.
Big tree.
I will make a motion.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to forestry condition.
Forestry condition number 2, I believe.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, do we have a second? All right, all in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for your patience and endurance today.
Okay, so we are now at 1:22.
Yep, through you, Mr.
Oh, and we're going to adjourn for half an hour for lunch.
Through you, Mr. Chair, since we're required to start at 1:30, may I suggest that you have a short break, come back at 1:30, do the vetting, and then take a break at that point? And then while you're having your break, people can be out in the hallway and speed things along for the afternoon.
Okay, is that acceptable?
Would that be fine?
All right.
Thank you.
I am hungry. Yeah.